like to call to order this meeting of May 22nd. Will everyone please stand for the pledge? Ready? Begin. Thank you. We'll get there in just one second. Couple pieces of business. Spanish translation. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Ms.
Sí, buenas tardes y bienvenidos de parte de la Junta Directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara. Si hay alguien que necesita la ayuda de un intérprete, por favor levante la mano para darle un audífono. Gracias.
Thank you. We don't have our slide up. Headsets are available for the hearing impaired. When we actually start the business of the meeting, we'll put that slide up so that people can see it. We have no action to announce from closed session. Acceptance of donations.
Move to approve with appreciation.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now we are on to introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions.
Well, we do have one presentation tonight, and to make that presentation, I'm pleased to introduce La Cumbre Principal Joanne Keynes, who will be introducing Band Director Mike Nunn and the La Cumbre Junior High School's Mariachi Band.
Good evening. Usually as I stand in front of you, I talk about academics, which are going well and getting better at La Cumbre. But this evening, I'm happy to highlight another part of La Cumbre, which is our instrumental music program. Before you tonight, after years and years of this district dreaming of a mariachi band, before you stands the La Cumbre Mariachi Band under the direction of Mike Nunn. Now, most of these students started in elementary school in our music program, except for our lead singer, America Estrada, who has only been in this country 7 months. By the way, she is a straight A student. So. Forming a mariachi band has been a challenge. Sheet music is not easy to come by. In addition, instruments associated with the mariachi band, like the guitarrón. Luis, if you could show that. Turn it sideways so we can see the back. Right. Very different, very expensive, and it was a challenge funding it. But this evening, we don't have our full group here. We are pleased to present 2 selections from their playlist, including one with vocalist America Estrada. So under the direction of Mr. Mike Nunn, here is the La Cumbre Mariachi Band.
muchos colores me gustan a mí. Canta el gallo con el kiri, 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 kiri. La gallina con el cara, 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 cara. Los polluelos con el pío, 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 pío. Y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. Y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí.
It's been our pleasure to be here. We'd also like to share with you our upcoming big musical event, the production of West Side Story, which features 80 students from La Cumbre Junior High, an all-community professional orchestra, primetime band, and other local musicians. And we'll, of course, you will be our guest. But we thought tonight, we'd like to present you with a West Side Story t-shirt. Let me show everybody out here. For each member of the board and our superintendent. inviting all of you and the city of Santa Barbara. This is a big production, a very difficult show. June 6, 8, 9, and 10 at La Cumbre Junior High. And here's for the superintendent. Thank you, and it's been our pleasure to perform for you. Thank you.
I'm- Thank you to all of you. I want to tell the students that if you watch at about 5 o'clock on Saturday on Channel 18, you'll be able to see your performance on television. And I want to see if there are any La Cumbre staff members and family members who came to watch the students. Please stand. We'd like to acknowledge all of you. Excellent. Thank you. We enjoyed the entertainment thoroughly.
And we just saw Gary Smith as well. Good. Shall I go on with the superintendent's report?
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to update the board on teacher layoffs. As you know, we had to start this process by law in March before the information needed for staffing was available. At that time, we did not know which classes students were requesting, nor which programs would be funded. Since the process had to be initiated so early and required a lot of legal notices to our teachers, it all seemed to be not a very humane process. But once our budget cuts were made to balance our budget and pay for increased salaries, we went into high gear to marshal all of our remaining resources to save talented teachers who received reduction in force notices. And I'm very pleased with the work of our secondary principals in this process. Right, Mr. Zettel? That's right. I am also pleased to report that we have been able to rescind all but 13 of those layoff notices. There's also good hope for the remaining 13 teachers with layoff notices, since we will continue to get letters from employees who are leaving the area, retiring, or requesting a one-year leave of absence. And this is the kind of thing that happens each year and that continues throughout the summer. So our hopes are to bring all 13 of those people back. We've made great progress on a memorandum of understanding regarding the exchange of property at the west side of Washington Elementary School, known as the Stevens Trust property, along Meigs Road. As we presented earlier this year, we anticipate a land swap through a lot line adjustment, which would move the Stearns Trust property up Meigs Road and give us a fully developed parking area next to the lower portables at the school, as well as a parking lot buffer between the school and any houses that might be built. And I understand that they probably would be houses and not multiple residences. We will bring a memorandum of understanding to the board as soon as possible. It probably won't be until later in June, and we will be meeting with the Washington PTO and staff to talk about the land swap. Author and gang resource Richard Ramos will speak to students at Roosevelt, Harding, and McKinley on Thursday. He will also meet with parents in the evening. Thursday will be the final of our 4 days of presentations in our districts. I am proud to report that yesterday, all 8 of our secondary schools were certified by the Anti-Defamation League as no place for hate campuses. Additionally, in our elementary district, the Child Development Program and Cesar Chavez Charter School also received certification. The No Place for Hate campaign focuses on activities that schools and community organizations develop to address prejudice and bias. It is in keeping with our efforts to create healthy environments for all students and is one of the many gang prevention measures in our schools, among other things, which will be addressed later in this agenda, time permitting. I was very proud of our students taking on the responsibility for a lot of those activity in the ways that they worked with other students and the ways that they worked with bullies at the school, for example. The board brief. My office regularly issues a report to the board called the Board Brief. This is a collection of reports and articles on school and district matters. A copy is on display in the reception area or can be provided through the superintendent's office. I would like to highlight two of the items in the May 11 board brief. One was an ADA report showing drops in enrollment and attendance over the year since October 2006. The other was a flyer describing the Tier 1 administrative credential program offered by the County Education Office. That's something that we have talked about for a number of years in terms of developing more administrative talent in the district. Upcoming events. Looking ahead, there are quite a number of events we can look forward to in May and June. Civil War Day will be held at Santa Barbara Junior High tomorrow. Santa Barbara Junior High's talent show will take place on Thursday. La Colina's choral concert will take place on Thursday. The Crystal Apple Awards will be presented on Thursday at the Santa Ynez Valley Marriott in Buellton. The names of those being recognized have been embargoed until Thursday, so I can't tell you who they are, but I will let you know. Santa Barbara Junior High's student anthology reading will take place on May 31st in the school's Globe Theater. Harding Elementary School will hold its annual science fair night on May 31. Santa Barbara High School's a cappella choir, madrigal singers, and men's and women's ensembles will perform on June 1st through 3rd at St. Anthony's Chapel. There will be a vocal music concert at San Marcos High School on June 5th. You may hear something more about that in just a moment. And LaCoumbre Junior High will perform West Side Story on June 6th, 8th, 9th, and a benefit matinee on June 10. Part of the June 10th proceeds will be donated to the Anti-Defamation League's education programs. And that's it for tonight's superintendent's report.
Thanks, Dr. Charvis. We have our next item, public comments. There are a number of people here who have signed speaker cards. It's customary to have 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And public comments are for items that are not addressed on the agenda. So I think Ms. Malakoff will read off your name. She'll read several names in order, and if people will come up to the podium to speak.
Okay, we have Laura Baker, followed by Nikki Lagenquist, followed by Andrea Matthews.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Laura Baker. I'm a teacher at LaCoumbre Junior High, and I am here again to speak about the proposed move of the Academy to LaCoumbre. And I have an issue that I brought up once before that I'd like to bring up again as a reason why I really think this is not a good idea. Since the last board meeting, there was an incident that occurred on the west side involving the LaCoumbre Junior High student and a former LaCoumbre, currently La Colina student. While the police said that they do not believe that the issue that brought these two boys to violence, resulting in one being stabbed in the back with a concealed knife, was not gang-related, they do believe that the way these boys carried out their argument was gang-influenced. As I've said before, I love our LaCoumbre kids, and we have an excellent discipline as evidenced by that is reflected in our current suspension and expulsion records. But the reality is that they live in an area of town that is seeing increased gang activity. The police and other city entities are recognizing this. Are you, the local leaders of our youth, going to turn a blind eye to this? Do you really not see how ill-advised placing 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds in the midst of this actually is? I spoke to one of the police officers the day after the stabber turned himself in. This police officer happened to be the one that was called to take statements. I asked him his opinion about the Academy move. And now, mind you, he's a veteran police officer and is intimately aware of the growing concerns with the gangs in the city. His response, quote, and I wrote it down because I was pretty floored, "Oh, that is the most ridiculous idea I have heard in a long time. I have been wondering why they are doing that." Now, let me review for you. This is now 2 police officers, as I had shared with you once before, 2 police officers since the March killing on State Street that have registered their disbelief with this idea. Are you ready to take on the liability of placing these young students in this kind of environment when you most assuredly have other options to exhaust before doing so? I'll be right here in this room looking on with great sadness when the parent of one of these little ones complains that their child's been approached at school about some turf issue between East Side and West Side. I'm just warning you now, it's most likely going to happen. How many of you are aware of the incident that took place at LaCoumbre about 9 years ago? high school kids came onto campus and attacked a student with a bat after school. That student ran into the hallway and was attacked. I see it, thank you. Was attacked right in front of room 100, 101, 102 in the hallway. He was left with severe head injuries. You ask any one of the veteran teachers there what that was like. Placing elementary age kids at this indoor campus where they simply cannot be separated is outrageous. Be very careful with this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki Lagenquist, followed by Andrea Matthews. Come on up so you can.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Nikki Lagerquist. I'm a senior at San Marcos High School, and I'm up here to speak on behalf of the arts and the decision to make PE a requirement for freshmen. Without classes such as drama and singing throughout my high school years, there is no way that I would have the confidence to come up here and speak to you tonight. Let me explain. Imagine after months of hard work and studying so hard to be your character, you are bowing in front of a cheering audience, and for a brief moment in time, you realize the cheers are for you and there's nothing quite like it. And that is a feeling worth working hard for, and a feeling worth fighting for, and that's why I'm here. When talking to you tonight, my purpose is to speak up for all the electives, but since most of my high school experiences happen in the arts, that is where my main focus is. In theater, we talk of acceptance and teamwork, of memories and our love of theater, but most of all, our love for each other. This theater family did not happen in one day. It happened over a course of the four most awkward years of a person's life, high school. It happened over a course, I wouldn't want to tell someone, an incoming student, that they don't have room in their schedule to do something that they love, that they can't be in a place that they will be accepted. I don't want to tell them they are missing out on an experience that they will never have again because of some fear over the obesity epidemic. I just want you to consider this. First, if your body is your instrument, like in theater, why would you want to harm it? Most actors and singers take very good care of their bodies because there is no better motivation to keep in shape than to know you will be performing in front of 500 people. Second, now that PE has taken away an elective spot in the schedule, what will students do to fill up their time after school? Third, many students I know would not have cared to do well or even stay in high school if it were not for the arts. The thing that is great about the electives I took is that I use it almost every day. Acting is the study of people. It is about understanding human nature and how individuals deal with certain situations. It has helped me so much, and I can't imagine having the opportunity of being a part of the arts taken away from me. It gives you self-confidence, and the feeling of being a part of this is so hard to express to others. I just wish I could show you how wonderful it is to have a group of people and a class where you know
30
you belong.
seconds.
During a time, thank you, when you feel like you have no control and completely lost everywhere else. I'm leaving this year, and I know I'm going to miss it. And so I'm just up here fighting for the next generation because I don't want them to miss out on opportunities I was lucky enough to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Matthews, followed by Kristen Scherer, followed by John Huchin. Huffchin.
Before you get started, I just want to say that public comment is now closed. So if anyone else wants to turn in a slip, do it now or forever hold your peace. Okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Andrea Matthews, and I'm a senior at San Marcos High School. And next year I'll be attending Brown University. And I say that not out of arrogance, forgive me, but I want you to know that when I speak about the college applications process, I might know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I'm here because each year at San Marcos I've taken at least 3 performing arts classes, usually madrigals for 2 years, and the spring show every spring semester. And the question is why you as the board should care about that at all. And I noticed that one of your guiding principles is that you want to help your students achieve academic excellence. Am I correct in saying that? And correct me if I'm wrong, but perhaps one measurement of academic excellence is how many of your students each year are accepted to college. And just a brief refresher, the 3 most important parts of your college application are your test scores, your academic transcript, and your essays, which usually have to do with your extracurricular activity. And may I briefly point out that for a lot of students at San Marcos and in any public school or any school at all, the reason that we get out of bed in the morning is not so much to study the core classes that we're expected to take, but it's to study the classes that we choose to take, such as performing arts or foreign language or any of the academic electives that we choose. I think you'll all agree that it gets harder every single year to get into a college, and as educators, I'm sure you already know that a student's extracurricular activities are what distinguish each individual from an increasingly large pool of applicants. Every single applicant must find a way to distinguish him or herself, or the chances of getting into college are pretty slim. And I'm sure this board would never, ever dream of depriving a varsity football player or cross-country runner from playing the sport that helped them gain attention from a college recruiter. But if I had not had 4 years of brilliant instruction in the performing arts, I would never have submitted the demo CD to Brown University that probably got me accepted. After school today, I did a little bit of tallying because I wanted to see how many students would be affected if the new wellness policy went into effect. And just based on the tally that I did after school, at least 400 students are involved in the performing arts. Approximately 200 are involved in miscellaneous electives such as woodshop. And I didn't even account for academic electives or foreign language. That's more than a quarter of
30
our
seconds.
school that participates in extracurricular activities that they probably would not participate in if they didn't get the chance to freshman year. That's a fourth of the applicants that may not get into college if that chance is not given to them. I just ask you to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Scherer, followed by John Houchin, followed by David Holmes.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Scherer. I'm a junior at San Marcos High School. And like Andrea, I have taken at least 3 classes of performing arts every year of my high school career. The cast and crew of San Marcos' spring musical, The Wiz, recently invited over 600 4th and 5th graders to attend a free daytime performance of the show. This was part of an outreach program designed to encourage younger students to participate in the arts. The reactions to this were exceedingly positive. One 5th grader wrote, "Dorothy and the cast really inspired me not to be afraid of being in front of people. I really want to be like Dorothy and Glinda when I go to San Marcos High School." Another student wrote, "I really want to be in a play like The Wiz. I can't wait to go to San Marcos and be a part of the theater group." Curious to understand how many performers at San Marcos transferred to the school because of the renowned programs, our directors took a poll of the cast. Out of 38 students, 27 of them transferred to the school because of San Marcos' programs. When a student comes to San Marcos as a freshman, they're immediately immersed in whatever program they choose, be it band, vocal performance, woodshop, or French, because foreign languages are an elective. Because students are able to receive that strong foundation in whatever program they choose, those groups that they are a part of are extremely successful. I'm a member of Enchantée, the women's choir at San Marcos, and last weekend we went to a festival in Anaheim. Out of 33 choirs, we were the highest scoring choir and received the Outstanding Choral Award. We were also given the Adjudicators Award, which is not always given out at festivals, but the judges, which are renowned musicians and directors from across the nation, picked us out as an outstanding choir. Madrigals, the chamber choir at San Marcos, was picked as one of 4 choirs out of 71 choirs to sing in Carnegie Hall next year, in the only festival sponsored by Carnegie Hall. The band is going to sing or to play in the Orange Bowl next year. These are huge accomplishments. The San Marcos vocal program is known throughout the nation. Last year it was ranked first in the nation.
30 seconds.
And programs like this are only successful because freshmen are able to participate in them in their first year of high school. If they're not able to participate in them as freshmen, they most likely will not continue throughout the rest of their year. Most of my friends who I sang with in junior high do not sing now if they weren't singing freshman year. I'd like to invite you to a concert on May 30th where you can see what we sang at our festivals. I'd like you to consider adding the wellness program back on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. John Houchin, followed by David Holmes, followed by Kenneth Locke.
Good evening. I'm John Houchin, art teacher from Santa Barbara Junior High, and I'm here this evening to present an appeal on behalf of members of the Secondary District Curriculum Council. The appeal is simple in purpose. We strongly urge you to reconsider your decision to dissolve Curriculum Council, as we feel it's one of the district's most enduring and vital advisory groups. Curriculum Council has played a key leadership role in the district for decades, and for good reason. The current process of Curriculum Council is working. In our meetings, actions include review textbook selections and requests, review new course offerings, reflect on current curricular policies and trends, share conferencing experience and opportunities, act as an advisory group to district administration, and communicate back to our departments from the assistant superintendent. Curriculum Council is the only true forum that allows teachers under the umbrella of an authorized body to have input in class offerings and district policy. Curriculum Council is generally made up of highly respected educators in their field. It retains an institutional memory and collective wisdom that remains in place over time. This is important as school administrators and board members come and go. Perhaps more importantly, we provide leadership and communication for members of our departments across the secondary district. This particular point bears scrutiny. Without Curriculum Council, there are no interdepartmental chairs. The interdepartmental chair is an active leadership role. Interdepartmental chairs are responsible for setting the meeting calendar and agenda, informing members of meetings, conferences, and news pertaining to curriculum standards and best practices. The chair facilitates goal setting and publishes minutes to the meeting, which are distributed to department members. These actions will not happen in a volunteer position. If the board chooses not to reinstate Curriculum Council, how do you propose to coordinate textbook evaluation and purchases without a content chair to coordinate the effort? Cutting Curriculum Council saves money now, but just one ill-advised textbook adoption could actually cost the district, not in dollars, but in potentially poor learning.
30 seconds.
Teachers need to participate in the textbook selection process, as they will be the end users. We urge you to revisit this subject in a future meeting and find a way to fund Curriculum Council. Thank you.
Thank you. David Holmes, followed by Kenneth Locke, followed by Kierden Dunn.
I'm David Holmes, and I urge you to place back on the agenda the wellness policy adopted 2 weeks ago. This wellness policy needs to come back to this board because it was hijacked by special interests and used as a tool to force the school board to adopt a policy that adds new requirements to a ninth grader's schedule, which benefits PE and hurts the general electives. Nowhere in the federal mandate for a wellness policy is the concept of physical education even mentioned. Your staff chose to write an unnecessary PE requirement into this wellness policy. What the Child Nutrition and WIC reauthorization of 2004 mandates is a wellness policy that includes goals for nutritional education and physical activity that are designed to promote student wellness. What you adopted 2 weeks ago is an attempt to place into policy and thereby solve one of the lingering problems with the Ed Code written in the mid-70s that denies PE credit for alternative courses like marching band that are not taught by credentialed PE teachers. Back in the 70s, it was soon discovered that this part of the Ed Code would decimate marching band and other alternative PE courses. So that part of the Ed Code has been ignored for over 30 years here in California. School boards were told, as you were told by your own legal counsel, Mr. Price, that there is nothing preventing the Board of Education from granting full PE credit for alternative courses. Basically, there is no case law that would make granting of PE credit for alternative courses illegal. Therefore, you have every right to continue to do so. It is time that this board directs its staff to go back to the wellness policy to draft a section that includes physical activity, not physical education. To sit there and wring your hands in worry that the CDE might someday put in writing a mandate to follow the clearly discriminating Ed Code concerning alternative PE credit is silly. The categorical program monitoring team from CDE that visited our district only cited 3 violations that needed to be corrected, and none of those had to do with alternative PE credit issues, none. If a directive ever comes down from the California Department of Education mandating enforcement of this part of the Ed Code, that mandate will most certainly be challenged in court as patently unfair. You see, the PE lobby wrote in a protective clause within the Ed Code for sports teams that are often coached by teachers who do not hold a PE credential. Therefore, if viewed under the bright light of justice, it would be very difficult not to include marching band as a
30
team
seconds.
sport, just like football. The two activities are the same, except for the fact that the marching band has over 100 first-string players all on the field at the same time, getting exceptional physical activity every day that they are in season. Please place the wellness policy back on the agenda and rescind your adoption of that policy. Let's write a true wellness policy that does not play politics at the expense of our students. I've left you a copy of this. I've also left you a copy of a suggested wellness policy on the second page. Please consider it.
Okay. Kenneth Locke, followed by Kieran Dunn, followed by Neil Chu.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I was going to talk on the topic of freedom, but I hear this topic, wellness. I bring to the table the understanding of wellness in relation to the mind-body integration. It's kind of mind-body wellness. We understand the basis of a wellness in relation to a healthy wealth. But I stood before the city council and talked to them about the concept of freedom, and I think it's important for this community to understand that concept and actually have it in the community. I have a witness of an artist who entered into a relationship with drawing and then it evolved into painting, but I'm claiming to be the first artist who was technically a slave to art and to the industry. Artists are put out to communicate with gallery. Also, they have to, there's the museum angle, and then also the educational, the university system in relation to the arts. But again, I'm claiming to be the first artist who was a slave to that process, who became free. And to understand the works of the artist of the 20th century and where that led up in relation to like the works of Jackson Pollock, in relation to the understanding that painting is not an object, but it's actually an exercise that actually integrates the mind and body. Right now, in relation to athletics, I'm kind of the first athlete who was a slave to sports competition, who graduated from that, who understands the basis of that slavery. The slavery is actually understood in relation to a person's participation with a single discipline. When an individual just entertains one discipline and doesn't become rounded, one gentleman mentioned football and the band. I think it's important to bring up children so that they can be both, not one or the other. And then when they leave education, that they could have lives that are multidisciplined. And through that multidisciplined, interdisciplined relationship, that'll actually provide the essence or the means for understanding the basis of freedom versus kind of a slavery in relation to one discipline. I just wanted to share that with you and in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Kieran Dunn, followed by Neil Chu, followed by Wendy Wu.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kieran Dunn. I am a junior at Dos Pueblos High School and a member of the marching band and concert band. I'm here tonight to encourage you to reconsider your decision about the wellness policy and to please put it on the agenda for your next meeting. The wellness policy has or will cripple the performing arts program and the electives departments of our high school. As was mentioned earlier, when freshmen come in to a program such as theater, marching band, art, and they fall in love with it because they choose to do it. They love it. But if forced away from their love, their passion for this, their activity of choice by a PE credit, they will stop doing it. They will not continue it just because that love and that passion, that fire in them does not stay. And this is prevalent through everything. If we say we disbanded all the sports teams for a semester, and wouldn't the sports program diminish in all of our schools? Because people get rusty. It's flat out true. And it's known that students get rusty over summer. We come back and we're a bit slow at the beginning of each school year. So if we disband the performing arts for even longer, we have stunted the development of these musicians, these actors, these artists. It is just, you will be crippling our departments. The fact is that you say wellness, the wellness of the body, as was mentioned earlier. An actor has every incentive to take care of him or herself because he or she's showing herself on stage in front of everybody. As a member of the marching band, I know marching band best. There is definitely physical activity there. When we mess up, I mess up a lot. Do you know what we do? We run. We do push-ups. We sweat. We work. Our heart rates are up. It is everything and more than a PE class can offer. There are no people sitting on the benches during our performances. No, everybody's on there working hard, just doing what they love and getting a good workout at it. The freshmen will come in and they are the face of these departments. They are the face of these departments. And when we go to we recently went to Goleta Valley to recruit. And people who will join the marching band next year, they don't join because they see juniors like myself or seniors or even sophomores. They join because they see people, the freshmen there, the people who need to stay there. They see the people they knew in middle school who are doing this thing that they love and they want to do that. And if forced away by PE credit, where will that source of people come from? I mean, they will not see these people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil Chu, followed by Wendy Wu, followed by Sufan Yan.
Good evening, Superintendent and members and audience. My name is Neil Chu, and as a father of two daughters graduating from Santa Barbara High School, and also a citizen of Santa Barbara for 20 years, I would like to address my personal opinion about offering Chinese classes in the school district. Now, as we all know that Chinese is getting more and more important, the kids are very interested in getting it. Why? There are so many magazines and TV channels. They are giving more and more information about China, and also the economic issues, and become so popular. Now the kids would like to learn and get a chance to learn Chinese at junior high and high school level. Now, as for a demand for these Chinese classes, I would like to tell a story about this. A 19-year-old freshman at UCSB approached us saying he's a geography major. He would like to have a private lesson in Chinese, and he is selecting Chinese as his minor. I asked him why make him make the decision. He says he just visited China. He loved China. He liked to have that opportunity as early as possible. However, there's no Chinese class offered at junior high school or high school level. The private schools here at the K school, they offer Chinese classes. Not to mention that Los Angeles school district, they offer Chinese classes, not only basic Chinese classes, but also AP, and they encourage students to take SAT classes, SAT Chinese also. Now we have Chinese school here. However, the school starts at the age of 5. Now till high school, we would like the kids to have more education because this is a lengthy process. Learn Chinese is not like one-day process or 1 year. It takes a long time and take patience and also self-discipline to accomplish it. So I'd like to say that please put Chinese program into the high school or junior high school in the agenda, and also later is better than never. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Wu, followed by Sufan Yan, followed by Autumn Brook.
Ladies and gentlemen, now on behalf of the Chinese school, I would like to share a piece of information. I'm the board member of the Chinese school currently, and I'm the resident in Santa Barbara for over 20 years. And in the past few years, I have seen increasing interest from the community. They want to send their children to Chinese school and learn Chinese. And I personally been asked to teach children as young as 2 or 3 years old, up to the adult is 45 years old, or for all different reasons. And our student factor from 50 to 85 students, and most of them are smaller children, like Mr. say earlier, that we only take children from age of 5 up to 18 years old. However, most of the children of our students are younger children because when they get to the junior high and high school, the increasing workload and the sports on the weekend, it's really hard for students to come and attend a Sunday school for 3 hours. And as you know, language, it has to be daily. If it's not speaking daily, it has to be learned daily in order to be fluent. So I'm very pleased that the board had the wisdom and the vision to put a Chinese instruction in the regular curriculum. And we have inquiry about after school, can Chinese school offer every day after school instruction? But the Chinese school is run by a group of volunteers and they all have a job during the day. So it's not possible for us to, even though we're willing to, but it's not possible. So we are very happy that the school board is willing to take the load off the Chinese school and put into the regular school curriculum. Now I have a question for the board. I know I saw it on the paper that say the board has approved for the Chinese to be put into the secondary schools if there's enough community interest. But from my personal experience for my daughters, I do not see Chinese being put it in the elective class list. Therefore, how would the students know to elect Chinese starting next fall? So that's a practical, I don't know how the process goes. Maybe they do have a choice during the summer, maybe when the school starts, but I think they have to know before the school ends so they can think about how they want to adjust their class schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Sufan Yan, followed by Autumn Brook.
大家好. Good evening. My name is Sufan Yan, and I teach Chinese at City College, and on Sundays I teach at Santa Barbara Chinese School. My students' youngest is 8-year-old, and the oldest is in her 70s. I have students from America, Spain, and Mexico, Japan, Korea, lots of places. My younger students in the Chinese school, they heard about the possibility of offering Chinese at the secondary. They're so happy because that means on Sunday they have time to do other things. My adult students, they're motivated by various reasons. Of course, being able to speak Chinese is a big advantage for them and for their career. But I think what really makes it work for them to get started with such a different language and be able to wanting to continue is that really the passion, the love for this fascinating language. Chinese is as one of the oldest and still speaken by over a quarter of people in the world. And it's a tonal language. It's very different. I don't want to say it's hard, but it's different. For example, let's say ba, 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 ba. Those 4 characters represent totally different meanings. The first one, ba, means just number 8. Ba means to pull. It's an action. Ba means it's a target. And ba is how we call our daddy, father. It's father. So you can imagine, what a mess if we mix that up. It would be confusing. So I'm saying that it's very important when we have the ability, the opportunity to learn at a much younger age, ideally from kindergarten or even younger. But I know for now, I'm so pleased to know that it's a possibility that we can offer that in a secondary level. And last March, I just attended a conference offered by Chinese International School. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary. They're offering the Chinese Total Immersion program. It's a very successful program. My vision is to see someday this will happen in Santa Barbara, and I'll be very happy to teach. I think the biggest problem, the limitation here for Chinese to expand is to be able to find teachers, and I'm very happy to be the beginning one. Thank you.
Thank you. And last is Autumn Brook.
My name is Autumn Brook, and I am here as a parent of a daughter adopted from China. She has been enrolled at Santa Barbara Chinese School in Mandarin classes, and so have I. So I have been learning right alongside of her since she started language classes when she was 6. And I just wanted to say I was elated when I read the newspaper article about the board having chosen to offer at a secondary level Chinese classes. I think that it is extremely forward-thinking for the children in this community to have an opportunity to learn about Chinese language and culture. Having grown up in Arizona, I had an opportunity to learn Spanish starting in elementary school, and I find that it has been extremely important to me in my life. I work a lot. I speak Spanish all the time. I have employees who speak Spanish, and I believe that in the future it's going to be an essential part of many people's careers to have facility with Mandarin and to understand more about Chinese culture. So I think this will be a real leg up for the students of Santa Barbara. And I also want to say that I know that there's a very rich history in this community as well as in many other communities in California of Chinese families, Chinese immigrants in the community for, since the 1800s. And I believe that both based on history and the percentage of Chinese living in this state, this will be a wonderful way of enriching all of the cultures, all of the children of this community. So I just want to applaud you and say that I hope that this program will be, advertised, that people will know that this is an opportunity they can take, and that the children who are now, trying to do it one day a week at Chinese school on Sunday afternoons will have an opportunity to really, do it in depth when they get to secondary school. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes our public comment.
Just a couple of comments. First, we're expecting further discussion of the La Cumbre and Santa Barbara Community Academy decisions at a special board meeting on June 5th, and we'll be announcing that. Second, we asked San Marcos High School about the number of ninth grade students who would be affected by the requirement of PE for one term. We're looking at ways for the, I believe it is 17 marching band students in ninth grade to continue to be able to take marching band and still fulfill the PE requirement.
Okay, that moves us on to our consent agenda. Board members, any items on the consent agenda that?
Yes. Shall I
Ms.
jump
Parker?
in? I would like to pull D1, D7, D12, D19, D20, and D21. That's it.
12, 19, 20, 21.
Mhm. Yeah.
I got one, okay. Any other board members, any other items? Nope, I think Ms. Parker.
Okay. I'll move to approve the remaining ones. I just want to mention on D10 that we have a retirement of Ms. Janet Immel, who's been with us for quite a few years and recently was awarded, was recently recognized. Exactly what was the?
Outstanding gate educator from the Tri-County Gate.
She will be missed.
Yes.
Thank you. So I made my motion, I think.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items that were not pulled signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. So it was a motion by Ms. Malakoff and seconded by Ms. Critter. Okay. We are on to our action agenda. And the first item is approval of reorganization plan for Santa Barbara Junior High School's governance that is consistent with the principles of restructuring as it approaches year 4 of No Child Left Behind program improvement.
And I'll ask Mr. Zettel, our Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education Services, to set the stage for this item.
Thank you, President Harder and Dr. Sarvis. Santa Barbara Junior High School is in year 3 of program improvement. In June of '06, the principal presented a reorg plan based on the '05 CST data that was approved by the board. With a new principal, Mr. John Becchio, he's returning to the board at this point to refocus, repoint that laser focus on the data that he currently has, fine-tuning his reorganization plan. He's going to be speaking to you about the needs of the entire school population while really focusing heavily on the achievement of English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged Latino and special needs students in both English language arts and mathematics. Part of the reorganization plan is a collaborative governance model in which a comprehensive analysis of the school-wide program is going to be driving the future of program decisions. And I'm going to let John talk about the rest of it. It's a very well thought out new way of looking at schools, and it's based on some of the best models and research that we've seen across the country. And especially, I just got a new report from Mr. Gonzalez regarding Michigan, and the things that we're putting in place here have been most successful in Michigan also. Who could know that? Mr. Becchio.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here tonight. So I'm here tonight for 2 reasons. One is to just provide information for you on where we're headed, and also to seek your approval on the additional items that are on our reorganization plan. I will be speaking to you about really 2 items, our programs and then a model of governance. If you look at this slide, you'll recognize some of these. We presented these to you in our June reorganization plan and also at the single plan presentations. They were in our single plan. They should be familiar to you. We are going to continue with algebra support classes for our students that are below proficient. We will continue with class size reduction in SEDAI algebra classes. Special ed program specialists, we're going to continue with that model. And we have AVID in place, and we're going to expand on AVID. This summer, we have about 12 folks from our campus going to the AVID Summer Institute. 3 of those are special education teachers, so they're going to bring, as I mentioned before, bring some of those AVID strategies back to our individual instruction classes. We will be scheduling our AVID students as much as we possibly can with AVID trained teachers, and we will be adding an AVID elective class. So our current 7th graders will go on to an AVID 8th grade elective class, and we have a bunch of 7th grade incoming students that will have a AVID elective class. So that's what we're doing with AVID. These are new items then that I would like the board to consider as part of the reorganization plan revision, and that is adding literacy support classes. We will be looking at adding an English learner literacy support class, and in this class, in both of these, the English only and the English learner support classes, we would like to infuse AVID strategies in those classes as well, but also for example, the English learner literacy support class would include the 20 minutes of ELD instruction each day. So that's something that we want to do with our below proficient students that are in our college prep English courses. Then data teams for college prep classes and a flexible grouping of classes. What I'm looking at doing with the master schedule this year is taking a data teams approach to our college prep classes, and what that means is having teachers that are teaming together and looking at frequent assessment data and then informing their instruction based on that data. The flexible grouping piece is taking the master schedule. It restricts it quite a bit, but I think we can do it, and that is usually we have about 6 offerings of, say, English 7. What I would like to do is, and we put those offerings, by the way, periods 1 through 6, and it really allows us a lot of freedom in our master schedule. What I'm going to try to do is actually couple those classes and only offer them 3 periods during the day, and what that's going to do is allow 2 teachers to have a English 7 class at the same time. And so my vision is to be able to have those teachers working together with a common prep period, and they will be assessing their students with common assessments, and then at the time they look at that data, they can make judgments based on, okay, this group of students needs to relearn this concept, they can go to that classroom. This group of students needs enrichment in this area or relearn a different standard, and they can go to this classroom. So we'll be doing some flexible grouping with our classes, and see how we want to see how that goes. The other classes that are not grouped that way will also, though, employ these common assessments, and looking at what they might possibly do is after 3 weeks, for example, of a unit, they would do an assessment and then spend 3 days or 4 days in a time period where they're doing a reteaching or enrichment activities around the data that they got from that assessment. So that's the data teams piece for the college prep classes. Cohesive ELD department is what I'm trying to do with ELD is have a department where teachers can focus on ELD or High Point. And what I found in the past is we've had teachers that come in to teach a period of High Point and then they go back in and teach something else. Maybe it's PE even. I've had PE that comes in to teach High Point. They're qualified to do that with the credential they have, but they're also qualified to teach PE. And so I found that it fragments the department a little bit. So I'm trying to shore that up as best as I can with the master schedule. EL counselor and AVID counselor, I'm trying to have our counselor be a counselor dedicated to our High Point basic students and our High Point A students. And he is a Spanish-speaking counselor, and also have him responsible for our AVID students, so to make sure they get scheduled in their classes with AVID trained teachers, and be their guidance counselor. interdisciplinary GATE team and interdisciplinary honors team. Currently, right now at Santa Barbara Junior High, I think I have about 17 or 18 GATE teachers. And what I'd like to do is reduce that number to 8 GATE teachers, and same with honors, 8 honors teachers. What that'll allow me to do is have a 7th grade interdisciplinary GATE team, 7th grade interdisciplinary honors team, and so this piece of it is where it's affecting the entire, our plan is really affecting the entire school, recognizing that our high achieving students are part of improving our program as well and making sure they continue to achieve at high levels. And then at minimum, I want to employ quarterly benchmark assessments in our core classes. And so I'm going to be sending that out as an expectation for our core classes. In terms of governance, we are right now on the tail end of a comprehensive program analysis. We've partnered with Carol Johansson's office at the Santa Barbara County Education Office. Several members of the district collaborative team were involved in this process in terms of the walkthroughs that we did, which I'll explain in a second. But this program analysis, we embarked upon this about a month ago. And what it is taking a comprehensive look at our entire program from the ground up. And it's asking folks from outside our school, all the stakeholders within our school community, and folks from district office and county ed office, and there was someone from a county ed office, I think, in Ventura, and we gathered data on our school program, and we just met yesterday as a leadership team. I formed a leadership team to help with this process, and we met yesterday to just sift through that data and come up with several common themes that emerged that we as a school site need to work on. We did parent surveys, staff surveys, student surveys. The entire staff had interviews with the county ed office folks. We did interviews of parents and students. We did an academic program survey that is based on the essential program components. And we did a day of walkthrough observations, and there was a team of about 20 folks went in and out of every single classroom and PE on our campus and gathered data about what was going on in our classrooms. We came back together, looked through that data, and like I said yesterday, we narrowed it down to some themes that emerged. The county ed office is going to put together, based on those themes and some solutions to those issues, the county ed office is going to put together a plan that we can take back to the leadership team and start implementing some of these solutions to those issues. So that really, as a staff, put us out there. I mean, it put me out there as a leader, our teachers out there. In some ways, it made us vulnerable to things we may not want to hear, but it was a unbelievable process to gather great information about what we really need to do at our school. So we're going to continue. We're going to look at that plan and then start working on implementation of some of those suggestions. The leadership team I formed to work on that plan, and I'm going to keep them intact for next year. Plan on meeting with them quarterly to get feedback on how the implementation is going, and to hear from them what extra support they need, what things might need tweaking a little bit. So that team will stay intact to make some decisions about the things that we're implementing at Santa Barbara Junior High. Essential program components, we're going to be making decisions around those 9 essential program components. We, as a staff, took the academic program survey, and there were some things that we're really strong in terms of those essential program components, and there's some areas that we need to work on, and so we will be trying to boost those areas where we need to work on within those program components. The collaborative data team spoke a little bit about it in terms of our college prep flexible grouping in those programs I listed, but really what I'm going to be doing is I want to really shift from a teaching model where we have teachers just imparting their knowledge on students and hoping they learn it, and if they don't, they go to summer school, to a learning model where we can really focus on learning in the classroom. I'll speak about that, a little bit more about that in a second. I also want to switch from an independent teaching model to a collaborative model. And my expectation is that I really can't have staff members that are going to work independently without collaborating. This is going to be a collaborative model that those staff members must fit into that type of model. So that will be an expectation. The academic culture, I'm going to be looking to staff, myself included, everyone on campus, to have high expectations of all students right as they come into us. And I want to, when you walk into classrooms, I want you to be able to see rigor, relevance, and relationships. And what I mean by that is a rigorous curriculum, relevant curriculum, something that the kids can, the question about why are we learning this, I would like that question to be answered in each of the lessons. And then also the relationships piece, that you can see that we have teachers that are absolutely connecting with students, and teachers that are showing their passion for their subject matter, and then that in turn draws students into that subject matter and hopefully sparks a love for that subject matter. And then a dynamic classroom, I would like for you to be able to walk into our classrooms and see not a teacher just in doing direct instruction, but all kinds of different strategies happening in the classroom, and students actively engaged in learning. And so that's going to be a big piece of this. I have to tell you, if you look at all these slides, the programs and the governance, it is really putting quite a bit of responsibility on staff to make changes. It is expecting staffs to be what they are, and that is experts in their area. And it's making curricular decisions based on data. It is looking at essential standards. I think the model right now that's very common is having teachers teach so many standards that they cannot get. The students can't possibly learn all those standards in the time given. And so what I would like to do is have them use their expertise to identify some essential standards based on data, based on the blueprint for the CST even, and then decide on what are those standards that we're really going to have our kids learn, and then teach it to a learning. So I'd be happy to answer questions that you might have about that.
Thanks, Mr. Becchio. I actually have a couple.
Sure.
If you can go back to the slide on comprehensive program analysis, I think it was the slide right before this one.
Yep.
Can you give us some examples of the kind of feedback that you received from the team?
We receive so much data. An example, let's see, what would be a good example to share? For example, professional learning communities. One of the things we found from staff interviews, like I said, the County Office of Education interviewed every single staff member, teacher, classified staff, and one of the things that emerged was we had PLC time built into our school day with Late Start Wednesday, but that time wasn't always sacred. In other words, things intruded upon that time, and we might have pushed back. One Wednesday I needed it for a disaster preparedness presentation to the staff, and so we pushed PLC back to the next week, Wednesday, but they had planned to work during that Wednesday, and so that inconsistency emerged, that time really needs to be sacred, and that's one example. Robin was on our walkthrough. Robin Swosky, Paul Turnbull, and Cynthia White joined us on the walkthrough observations. I don't know if you have anything brilliant to share from that experience.
Well, brilliant? I don't know. There was so much information
Yeah.
actually given. Some of the things that I observed, in some classrooms, standards were very evident as far as teachers directing the kids to, this is the standard we're covering, explaining it in kid language in a sense where they knew what they were doing. We saw that the directions in every single classroom that I visited, actually, the directions about what was going to happen during that class period were available for kids. They, up on the overhead. There was actually quite a bit of technology being used. One thing that we noted that we had as recommendation was that there were a lot of single child answers, and so we wanted to see more engagement so that rather than one child answering, it was, look to your neighbor, come up with a group answer, that kind of thing, where you just have more active involvement. So it was that kind of thing, but they really followed into trends, like you said. I'm interested to see what the report says, because it was pretty clear from me, from having done a lot of these audits, that some schools are all over the board, and there's so many ways you can address the challenges and the ways to improve. With Santa Barbara Junior High, I think it was pretty clear, and as far as a couple of really big things that should have a lot of significance in the improvement. And so I can see where the staff could really get behind some of that. But as John says, it's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of change, a lot of really staff buying into a new vision for Santa Barbara Junior High. I don't know, anything?
Was there so much feedback that you feel like you'd have to prioritize it?
Well, we spent
implement?
an entire, we had, it was, I don't know, a packet of maybe 50 pages of data from this experience, all this information collected together. And we, as a team, the leadership team actually spent an entire day looking through that data and kind of narrowing it down to what were our strengths as a school and what our areas of need or areas to work on were. And so we were able to narrow that down, and then we took that to staff today, and again got suggestions about not what areas of concerns, but what are solutions to those areas of concern. And county head office is going to take that back and actually start putting together a plan that we can take a look at, and we can implement those things. Maybe some things don't apply, or we don't want to tackle those right away. So yeah, it was an unbelievable process to go through. I'm really glad that we did that. So.
Can I ask you to go to the slide immediately before this? I just have one quick question about it. Oh, when you're talking about an interdisciplinary GATE team or an interdisciplinary honors team, are those teachers teaching only GATE classes or teaching only honors classes?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be teaching what they won't have honors classes.
Okay.
So, but they will have our college prep classes. I think we may have one of those GATE teachers teaching a High Point class, actually. So they'll mix and teach other things.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to check. I know there are different strategies that are brought to bear in different kinds of classrooms, and I think that it makes for better classrooms when a teacher has that kind of cross training.
Yeah.
And exposure.
Absolutely.
And that would be true for the honors team as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm a little confused. Maybe you can clarify. I thought I heard you say you were reducing the number of GATE teachers.
Correct.
Could you explain that?
Sure. Well, currently we have, for example, I have 3 English 8 teachers that are teaching GATE, and they're teaching 3 different sections of GATE English. And so what I'd like to do is, and what happens is it's not always the same. It's not the same experience for the student necessarily, and maybe even grading practices are different, and those kind of things. So what I wanted to be able to do was have one English 8 GATE teacher actually take on those 3 classes, and then they'd be in a team of 3 other folks that are in different subject areas where they can collaborate around interdisciplinary projects, for example, or common information about students they share in common, and in both GATE and honors do that.
So let me understand it correctly. So where you had 3 different English teachers teaching GATE, henceforth it'll be 1 English teacher teaching the same number of students, the same number of classes?
Correct.
So in other words, you're
How are
just
you gonna pick
reducing the
that
number of
student?
teachers, not the number of classes.
No, not the number
Right.
of classes. Yeah. Just the number of teachers.
That's an important difference.
Yeah, the number of classes would be the same as it would be if it was the way we're doing it now.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
That. So the effect for students and for parents is that they won't have any choice between teachers anymore.
And they don't currently, though.
They don't.
No.
Students are just assigned by you.
They're scheduled into classes, and there's not much movement among
okay.
teachers. No.
All right. I have other questions, but that's a footnote to yours.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Could you refresh my memory What is it that got Santa Barbara Junior High onto the program improvement status in the first place?
Well, initially, it was our math scores.
In which subgroups?
In our English learner, basically it was 4. It was English learner, Latino, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities.
In math?
In math.
That's my recollection.
Yes,
Okay,
and then in math. And English language arts, fine. We presented, Susan Salcido presented last year in June, based on really data from the previous year, which was math. We had an issue in math. And so the plan that we put together, you'll notice, focused on math and students with disabilities. The reason I came back to you was because with more current data, we noticed that our English language arts, there were 2 subgroups there, our English learners, students with disabilities, where we needed to have a plan for action for that.
What's been the history of the math? Have you gotten off of AYP? Are you meeting annual?
We have in 2
progress in math now in those same subgroups.
Yes, we have made progress in those subgroups. We actually 2 of them we met targets, and then the other 2 we made growth but did not meet the targets.
Which are the 2?
The English learners and students with disabilities.
Those have not.
Right.
But the
socioeconomically
disadvantaged students are now meeting the targets.
That's correct, and the Latino
Latinos.
students.
And that's this year's targets.
That's correct.
Yeah. What's the expectation for next year's targets? Where the targets go up, right?
Well, the targets this year are the same. They're at 24 and 26, and
what are they next year? I don't have mine.
For this testing period, it's 24 and 26% proficient. The following year, it will increase to 10 percentage points, roughly. So.
And your scores are where?
They're at Davis, they're at 20.
Which one do you want?
What are they?
Which one do you want?
Latinos and socioeconomically disadvantaged math.
Okay, for your Latinos, the score is 28.8% right now. Okay. And that's for ELA. And for social economically disadvantaged, it's 27%.
That's in math or?
That's an ELA, English Language Arts, so 28 and 27, and the requirement is 24. So they're in a comfortable range there, and they hopefully will be next year in that same range. For math, their Latino is 24.6. They made it by a data averaging, I believe, or maybe it was Safe Harbor, and it needs to be 26. So their math, they're still a little low in the Latino by 2 points. And they're socioeconomically disadvantaged, the same thing. They're 24.5, and I believe it was Safe Harbor. So they're just a couple of points below there, too. So if they can bring them up a couple of points, they'll be fine for this year.
For the scores that are not yet in?
Those right. 2 scores are 2 points below. They're not yet in, no. But they made it by Safe Harbor, I believe.
My question has to do with that you haven't said anything about math on there.
Mm-hmm.
And is that... What I don't hear a very big, I don't hear a big comfort level about math here. That you're squeaking through on math, and you have a comprehensive plan here that focuses on everything but math.
Well, remember that the data teams for college prep classes, that includes our pre-algebra and algebra classes. And then if you take a look at our math support program, we're going to continue with that. Yeah, this was. I very quickly went over this because these are things we're going to keep in place, and they have been presented in our last reorganization plan. But we will continue with that structure for math.
Okay.
May I point out only that English is also an issue. So this
Correct.
school has to have no points of failure in math or English language arts.
So,
English is also an issue now.
One will kill you.
That's right.
That's right.
Anyone.
Yeah, anyone.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, count the ways. How do I go PI? Count the ways. My notes are all over the place here. You talk about frequent assessments and data, and I've been hearing those phrases for many, many years around here. I thought we had that problem all solved. But maybe, and maybe this is something you've worked out with Dr. Hayden, but I would like to know more about the assessment instruments and how frequent and their alignment with the standards.
Well, they will all be aligned with the standards, and our assessments have been for years as we're standards-based curriculum.
Well, which ones are you talking about? Which assessments?
All of our assessments.
Could you be more specific?
If it's quarterly benchmarks, it would be those quarterly benchmarks
But
from
I
our.
mean, we're not communicating. Which instrument? Is this an off-the-shelf product you buy from someone? Are these homegrown?
No, it'd either be from our state-adopted textbook, or if it's a diagnostic exam, for example, which we would give at the beginning of the year, it would be from our San Luis Obispo. There's an exam that comes out of there. If it's English language arts, it'd be from our Holt textbook.
Aren't you, Dr. Hayden, providing, didn't we acquire some recent software and assessment capabilities?
Well, EduSoft would.
EduSoft?
Yeah, EduSoft would allow the teachers, is going to allow the teachers to actually create an assessment based on standards that they can go into the bank of standards-based questions and create their own exam. So between EduSoft and they could put a Holt benchmark, actually I believe they're in EduSoft, so they can put a Holt benchmark in EduSoft, and then that way they can use the program to analyze the data. Okay. So we'll be using EduSoft, and it may be an exam from Holt that they put in EduSoft, or it could be an exam they create in EduSoft. For example, our math department has already created their own exams based on what they had, what standards they had taught in EduSoft. So
you're, yeah, I wondered whether you were considering some external package like Northwest Assessment Association or something like that. Okay.
But I did want to comment about the assessments, though, and the piece that I think is critical is not only giving the assessment, but it is actually what we're going to do with that assessment. So it's actually the expectation to have item analysis done on those assessments and then something done with that data immediately. So if it's a time period where they can have the teacher and the students can go over, okay, what did we find from the item analysis, and then have a session of reteaching, or in, say, social studies or science, they might use that data. The teacher collects it all year, and during a review session prior to the testing window, they will know exactly what standards their students had trouble with on each of the benchmarks. So I think it's how the assessments serve instruction is what I'm really focused on, because you're right, we've been doing assessments for a long time, and we've been talking about them. I just want to make sure that what we're doing with that data fits into that learning model.
Connecting the data dots?
Yeah, exactly. And in that learning model, rather than, oh, they didn't get it, I guess it'll be summer school for those kids, and et cetera. So that's the model I want to try to get away from.
Gotcha. I found one thing you said so troubling, I have to ask you about it. We can't have independent teachers. They must collaborate. What if they're very, very good? What if an individual just happens to be an excellent teacher? And let me tell you, I had a colleague who was also a brilliant lecturer. And when you said collaborate, he said, if you say collaborate to me, I go the other way. He was a loner, but he was brilliant. Now, is there a place in your school for excellent teachers who simply don't work in a collaborative mode with other teachers, but do a great job in their classrooms?
There's, in this model where I have collaboration time set aside, I'm going to be having an expectation that those teachers collaborate. So that's what I feel is very important. Those teachers that are excellent are going to be in a professional learning community where they're sharing what makes them excellent with other teachers, and vice versa. So I can't think of a situation at my school where that's going to be an issue, but if it were an issue, I still would stand strong to the expectation that those teachers collaborate. There's a time at our school where it's contractual time, and those teachers are being paid during that time. So.
I'm reminded of the phrase that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. And I would hope that, that the collaborative process doesn't wash out the excellence toward a lower common denominator and produce a bunch of camels. How do you take that excellent teacher and make sure that the other teachers rise to that level rather than that they come out with some kind of regression effect around
Yeah.
the middle?
I think that excellent teacher, and we have many of them on my staff,
know
I
you
have
do.
to tell you. And so when
That's
we
why I'm
get-
asking questions like
yeah,
this.
but when we get into those groups, there's one thing that came out of the data, by the way, of this program analysis was it was overwhelming. The professional learning communities model the teachers loved, and their concern was about that time being invaded. And so I don't have that situation occurring on my campus where I have a teacher that's excellent but doesn't want to collaborate. So I'm fortunate in that regard. So.
And the collaboration time, I think you explained that, that you're arranging it so that they have a common prep period. Collaboration time is, we've heard for decades, that it's the most scarce thing in public schools.
In some instances, I'm able to create a common prep period for teachers that are teamed with another teacher in that college prep track, but we have a late start Wednesday where from 8 o'clock to 8:50, the teachers, that is contractual time, and that is where we put our professional learning communities.
I didn't see a budget item. Don't you think it'd be a good idea to have a pot full of money to pay people stipends if it was necessary to get the collaboration?
Well, it's
Or did I miss that?
well, Dr. Noel, it's actually paid time already. So we're in a situation where we don't. If teachers are working outside the school day,
Yeah.
which has happened a couple times this year, and that would be paid time. This is a model that we're using. I think La Colina has the same thing where we actually have time built into our school day for teachers that they don't have students at that time, and they have that time for collaboration. So I wanted to go back to the independent thing because I think the opposite is why I put that up there is the opposite of what you're speaking of, and that is is having teachers that are working independently that I believe need to be in a collaborative model to improve teaching skills. And so that is more common than having someone that's excellent and not joining in to collaborate with other folks.
I will conclude simply by saying that my youngest son went to Santa Barbara Junior High, as you know, and we were quite pleased with the education he received there.
Thank you.
Like to see Santa Barbara Junior High off of the PI list ASAP.
I would too.
Other questions, Ms. Parker?
My colleagues have been asking great questions, so thank you very much, although Dr. Noel has now insulted camels everywhere, and I fully expect many emails from camel lovers, outraged. Anyway, my question at this point is just, will the board get a chance to see the county plan that comes forward to
Sure,
the junior high?
absolutely.
Because I
Yeah.
think it would be very interesting for us to see the results. Since obviously we couldn't participate in the walkthrough, although that sounds like a very interesting process. I'd love to see what comes
Yeah.
from it.
I'll have quite a bit of goodies from that process. I have
Okay.
some data packets, and I'll have a plan that we look through. I'll take to site council, so I'd be happy to share that with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Actually,
Ms.
that was
Cordero?
going to be my question too, and I was just wondering if you have, you may have said this and I might have missed it, if you have an idea of when that plan is going to be coming forward to you.
The plan, we have a meeting next Wednesday that I believe the county head office will have a draft of that plan, and the leadership team will be taking a look at that on Wednesday morning. And then what we'll do is go through and see what is going to work for our school and what things were maybe drafted with wording that wasn't quite exactly what we had put forward, and then they'll revise it, and then they'll bring it back to us, and eventually I'll go to site council with it, and then it'll shape some of the decisions that we make for the coming school years.
Great, thanks.
I had
Thank you.
a quickie. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
No, go ahead.
The role of the county, is that like technical assistance under, okay, it's paid for then with the funds that are set aside for technical assistance? Okay, thank you.
Was that it, Ms. Cordero? Okay, Ms. Malakoff?
Your plan requires lots of changes. How's your staff reacting to all these changes?
They, I have to tell you, they're a staff that is not resistant, which is great. This has been a process that it's inclusive of some folks on our site that are really kind of a diverse group of teachers. And they spent a day looking over this, going through classrooms, but also looking over this data, and they really took quite a bit of ownership over that. And we presented it to staff today, and we got our goal today was to come away with 60 other people giving input about concrete things that could help in those areas, and they all participated in that. And I saw lists of things. I don't envy the county ed office and having to compile all that into a plan, but nonetheless, we got great feedback. So they've been great about it. I have to say that I've been to Santa Barbara Junior High for 10 years, and it's always been a place that we seem to be out in front of things. So I can remember standards-based education, and we put together a standards-based learning team and took off with that probably a year or two before most schools were implementing things. And so I think that's just the mindset there is let's get out in front of this thing. And we could be doing this in year 4. If we are to get to year 4 of program improvement, it requires a restructuring plan. It doesn't require us to implement that till year 5. This process allows us to just say, what's good for kids is good for kids. Why do we need to wait till year 4 or year 5 or whatever year it is? And so, and they're coming along with that. So I'm very proud of our staff.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make one more comment that really stood out that I think is important. What was highly notable was the teaching staff. Their knowledge of their content was just exceptional in every single classroom that I went through, and then that was one of the things that was noted by all the groups, that was outstanding. So, that coming from that foundation with the knowledge of the teachers and their content areas, I think it's going to be much easier to move ahead with the other pieces.
And one last comment. I'm sorry, Nancy. I'd like to remind everyone that Mr. John Becchio was a first-year principal, and I, for one, am very proud of him and the work that he's doing. I just want to say that publicly.
Thank you. That's a good way to end. Thank you, Jan.
This next page of questions. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Mr. Becchio. We appreciate having the time to go through this presentation with you and ask some questions. I think everyone appreciates the ability to spend some time with you this evening in talking about this plan. And I think we all recognize that you are a year ahead of yourself in terms of the planning that you have to do. And we appreciate that. And we'll see what we get in August.
Great. And you're always welcome at the site, of course, and tomorrow's Civil War Day. So join us, if you will, on the front lawn.
Thank you very much.
This is on the action agenda, Madam President?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
And I move that we approve the plans submitted by Mr. Becchio.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. So a motion by Dr. Noel, second by Ms. Cordero, to approve the reorganization plan for Santa Barbara Junior High School's governance that is consistent with the principles of restructuring as it approaches year 4 of No Child Left Behind program improvement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Now we are on to item E3, approval of variable term waiver. I'm sorry, thank you.
Well, we don't have Dr. Robertson here. This is a variable term waiver that needs to be approved by the board so we can keep this teacher in place.
Are there any questions by board members? The explanation in the attachment was pretty evident. Okay. Is there a motion then?
Move to approve.
Second.
So a motion by Ms. Cordero, second by Ms. Parker to approve the variable term waiver. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Item E3, board action on student expulsion case numbers. And if we could take them in the order that they are listed on our summary sheet.
President Harder?
Yes.
Very late after I met with you folks, case number 0607-66 did request a meeting with the board.
Okay, so we will not vote on that one this evening.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion for 0607-71?
I move that we uphold the findings and recommendations of the hearing panel.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
In the case of 0607-63, I move that we uphold the findings of the hearing panel.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
In the case of 0607-74, I move that we uphold the recommendations and findings of the hearing panel.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
In the case of 0607-72, I move that we uphold the findings and recommendations of the hearing panel, and with the exception that we send the student to interim home
Alternate education services.
Thank you. For the remainder of the year.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay.
And
abstain.
Okay. So we have 3 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
In the case of 0607-69, I move that we uphold the findings and recommendations of the hearing panel.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes 5-0.
And lastly, 0607-70, I move that we uphold the recommendations and findings of the hearing panel.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes 5-0. I just want to jump back to 0607-72. I just want to make it clear. There were 3 yeses, which was Ms. Parker, Ms. Malakoff, me, 1 no vote, which was Dr. Noel, and 1 abstention, which was Ms. Cordero. Okay. So that was quick voting on a lot of hard work going through cases. We are on to our conference agenda, and the first item is a request to present to the board by Lanny Ebenstein regarding enrollment trends and a proposed parcel tax.
And Mr. Ebenstein is right here.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm kind of low-tech, so no PowerPoint presentation, but do have some charts to make sure that we have these right. So that's the order they go in. If you put the first one on, let's see if that works right. Okay, great. President Harder, members of the board, Dr. Sarvis, it's a pleasure to be here this evening and to talk with you briefly on enrollment trends and a possible parcel tax in the Santa Barbara Elementary School District. These two issues are very connected in that enrollment is so important to finances that I thought it would be worthwhile to review some enrollment trends first and then move into a discussion of the parcel tax. This first chart is a copy of elementary enrollment from 1993 through 2005-06. And you can see that enrollment in the elementary district has actually been relatively static over this period. This chart was actually prepared a year or two ago by Barbara Kiani. And one aspect that it doesn't include is that in the years before 2002-03, 6th graders were at La Cumbre, so that the bars before 2001-02 and further back would be slightly higher as a result of those students. But nonetheless, you can see that with respect to overall direction of the enrollment in the elementary district over time, that it's been reasonably stable and perhaps more stable than you might think. Can we see the second chart now? Okay, great. All right. Now, this is a chart that I did several years ago, and it's a chart of Santa Barbara Elementary School District enrollment, taking a look at Cottage Hospital births and then kindergarten enrollment 5 years later. And births at Cottage Hospital are in black, and precede by 5 years in kindergarten enrollment. And the scale on the right is kindergarten enrollment. The scale on the left is births at Cottage Hospital, and the two scales are equilibrated. Perhaps you can just show the bottom of the chart for the, let's see if you can push up just a little bit further. Yeah, just so you can see, okay, so the one's cottage births and the other kindergarten enrollment. Okay, now if you can bring it back down. Okay, well, you probably don't have to be trained in statistics to an exceptional degree to notice a certain correlation between those two trends in terms of it's something that it's been the case that we've been able to determine quite accurately what kindergarten enrollment would be based upon the births at Cottage Hospital 5 years before. Once students enter the system, there's historically been something like a 98 or 99% retention from one grade to the next, and those are also trends that can be projected based on historical experience. And therefore, you can arrive at reasonable projections of enrollment in the district over time. Of course, as the years go on, the projections become less accurate, but the point is at least there's some basis for them. Okay, then if we can see the third chart, this is a new chart, which is births at Cottage Hospital since 1997. And in trying to think what's going to happen with enrollment in the future, it's very important to see what's happening with births and what has happened with births in the recent past. And it occurred to me that perhaps most people aren't aware that actually, although there's an impression to the contrary, in fact, births at Cottage Hospital have increased in recent years, and this is a similar trend to Goleta Valley Hospital. It has a similar trend over these number of years. So it's something that from a historical perspective, at this point in time, we would be projecting that the elementary enrollment would be increasing in the coming years. However, it's not. And why is that the case? Well, the matriculation rate from birth at Cottage Hospital to kindergarten enrollment 5 years later has gone down in recent years, whereas it had been about 40% of births at Cottage would wind up in the Santa Barbara Elementary School District kindergarten. In 2006, it was the lowest figure ever, which was 34%. And that may not sound like a big difference, but 6% on 2,000 births can be as many as 120 kids. So the point is, and then you multiply that forward. It's something that, so that's one impact. And then secondly, there's an impact of within the grades of students who start out in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, how many then enroll in first, second, third, and so forth. And that rate has also gone down. In the projections that I did for future enrollment in the elementary district, what I tried to do was disproportionately weight, that's a W-E-I-G-H-T, disproportionately weight to the recent trend as opposed to the 4 or 5 year trend, on the thought that it would be better to presume that the current short-term trend will continue, so that there would be so that the district wouldn't be in the position of trying to project that there would be more students than might actually be the case. So if you use those sort of assumptions that I've just described based on this historical data, what you'd see is that the Santa Barbara Elementary School District should decline by about 70 students next year from its current 5739. And then it should, in the next year or so after that, level off for the next several years at a range of about 5,650 to 5,800 students. And this is consistent with some projections that the district has had in the past. The Sage Institute in December 2002 made projections which also showed a turnaround occurring at this point in time. Both myself and Sage thought that based on historical data, the elementary district might at this point in time be moving into a period where it might grow in enrollment by 500 students or even more. I think it's more likely that at this point in time the elementary district is likely to remain about where it is in enrollment as it's been in enrollment. I think that two factors that will help that enrollment to stay about where it is that in the first place, situation in the Hope District where students aren't being able to transfer there as easily is, I think, going to result in several dozen students a year being enrolled in the Santa Barbara Elementary District that wouldn't otherwise occur. And also, as some of the board members know, I have never utilized building data much in making enrollment projections because there isn't strong correlations that you can deduce between building trends and enrollment. And that's, I think, because as long as the building pace doesn't change, either up or down, those building trends are already incorporated into the historical rates of students remaining from cottage to kindergarten or within the school once they get into first grade kindergarten. So in any event, however, it does look like there's a little bit of a building boom in the city right now. So I think that from that factor too, there will probably be a little boost in enrollment. So at this point in time, my view is that enrollments will probably stay about where they are for the next several years. And that's important because if it were the case that the elementary district were going to be dropping another 500 or 800 students, it might be possible to look at some other options, including possibly closure of elementary school. But I believe that as a result of the enrollment that the elementary district is likely to experience, that it would be very difficult to close an elementary school strictly from an enrollment perspective. In my April 5th letter to the board, I included information on the average enrollment in the Santa Barbara Elementary District compared to other districts on the South Coast, whereas our neighborhood attendance area elementary schools have an average enrollment of 530 students. All the other elementary districts on the South Coast only have an average enrollment of 357 students in their neighborhood attendance area elementary schools. Even if you leave out Vista Del Mar and Summerlin, which are the two smallest elementary schools, the other elementary districts on the South Coast would be 388, which once again is compared to our 530. Our schools are already 37% larger on average than other elementary schools on the South Coast. Well, then what to do? Enrollment may not be going down as much as thought. It doesn't look like there's good, significant reorganization options. What then would be a way that the elementary district might be able to generate some funds? And I think that the elementary district should take a very serious look, seriously consider, whether tonight or on another occasion, a parcel tax in the elementary district, and I've previously given the board some information on that, and we'll just review some of that information now. A 2/3 vote is required for a parcel tax of those voting on the measure. A parcel tax can be used for almost anything per state law. However, the Board of Education may impose limits on how funds would be spent in a ballot measure. As to the duration of a parcel tax, historically they've been for 4 years. However, there's no limit in state law and other durations are possible. I recommend 5 years. I think that if parcel tax are longer than that you run into issues that many circumstances in a district can change over time, enrollment trends can change, state financial trends can change, and that therefore to go longer than that I think is something that may not be a good decision from a planning perspective as well as from the perspective of trying to get the most votes at the ballot boxes. With respect to who pays a parcel tax is uniform as applied to all real property. And this would strictly be in the elementary district, not in the secondary district. So in other words, a property can be appraised for $400,000, and as this proposal here, it would be assessed $20 a year, or it can be appraised for $2 million. It would be assessed for $20 a year. So it's not an ad valorem tax on the basis of the value of the property. It's a parcel tax. Each parcel pays the same amount. Taxpayers over 65 may be exempted from a parcel tax. However, I believe that in Santa Barbara there's strong support for schools among everyone among all ages in the community, and that it would not be a good idea to create an exemption for senior citizens. With respect to how many parcels there are in the Santa Barbara Elementary District, I should say that this presentation tonight is preliminary in the sense that I hope to bring some information to your attention that may cause you to be interested in this idea. And then among the information that would have to be fleshed out in further detail would be the exact number of parcels. I believe that there are approximately 28,000 parcels in the city, but that includes several thousand parcels in the Hope District that are not in the Santa Barbara Elementary District. However, it doesn't include about 1,000 parcels in Mission Canyon that are in the elementary district, but they're not in the city. However, the 28,000 figure also includes government parcels, of which there are more than you might think among the city, the county, the school districts, and other agencies. It's something that I believe there's over 1,000 government parcels. In any event, or hundreds in any event, the city has a ton of parcels. In any event, I feel that a 25,000 figure is probably about accurate before further clarification. As to when a parcel tax could be held, there are 3 elections in 2008 on February 5th, well, as of today, February 5th, June 3rd, and November 4th. And I would probably advocate the June 3rd ballot in that that's enough time to research something in adequate depth. And as you'll see from a chart that I'll put on in a moment, the district has done well with June elections in the past in the elementary district. The other thing is that by going in June, it may be the case that you could, by having a tax be effective in the, you might be able to have it effective for the 2008-9 tax year, whereas if you were to go into November, then it might not be able to start until 2009-10. So I think that would be another reason to consider June of 2008. With respect to how much a parcel tax election would cost, once again, that's information that would have to be determined. I did find some information on the cost of the school board election in November 2006, just in the elementary district. And the elementary districts expended $13,359.95 for that election, but I presume that the secondary district paid a like amount because it was half the secondary district's responsibility. And in any event, so that's where the $26,700 figure comes from. But as I say, I'm not sure about that figure, and that's just an approximation based on the data that I have. So that's some background on parcel taxes in general, and just make a few more comments on it, and then I'll wrap up. And I thank you for your time. Let's see here. Yeah, if we could put the next slide on. Okay, these are proposed parcel tax purposes. The first would be to maintain at least 9 neighborhood attendance area elementary schools in the Santa Barbara School District. The second would be to restore the elementary district music program to 2006-07 levels. The third would be to maintain and increase after-school programs. And then the fourth purpose would be to provide extra staffing for fewer grade combination classes, which I think as a result of the new staffing formula in grades 4 through 6, you're likely to have more of those. So those are my thoughts, as a preliminary thoughts on areas that I think everyone would say that, yeah, it's important that schools have a strong music program. Neighborhood schools are important. After-school programs are certainly important, and trying to have a little bit more flexibility on staffing so that you don't always have to cut it right to the 29th student would also be beneficial. But there could be other things as well. And what I propose would be a $20 a parcel tax for the 25,000 parcels in the Santa Barbara Elementary School District, which would be approximately $500,000 a year, or over 5 years, $2.5 million. I would encourage you, and I'd very much encourage you to, if you were interested in this idea, to keep a parcel tax modest. And I believe there's something that's really, I think the $20 figure would be an effective figure, and it's one that is easy to say, hey, that's the cost of one pizza a year. Is that worth it for better programs in our schools? I'd much rather see a $20 parcel tax pass than a $40 parcel tax fail. And it's something that, particularly if it may be possible at some point in time in the future to consider, I think the existential difficulty facing the district is that it's important to pay staff to be able to live in our area, and yet there's a trade-off between staff and program. If the community wishes to have quality program, it may have to supplement that. If there's a thought that if a first parcel tax in the elementary district were successful, that then it might be possible to consider other parcel taxes, either in the elementary or secondary district. I think it would be better to start small and low and have a win than to try than to a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So we'll conclude with that, or we'll make that comment. Okay, then we can see the other chart here. Okay, specifically with regard to the elementary district, I thought it would be interesting to look at the bond elections in the elementary district. Measure R was Rebuild Roosevelt in June of 1990. Both received the same percentages. My data should be corrected from the letter I sent you. It was by memory, and I went down to county elections and got the actual figures. The Measure R received 79.9%, and Measure I in June of 1998 also received 79.9%. So I believe that there's, and those are higher percentages than other local school districts received for their bonds. So those were the two highest percentages for bonds like these on the South Coast. So I think there's strong support in the elementary district for considering reasonable educational requests. Just a few final comments in closing that people have made to me as I've chatted with a few individuals about this in the last week, is that one, with respect to the idea of closure, there's currently some controversy in California whether charter schools might be able to request closed schools. So I don't know to what extent that's resolved yet, but that is certainly an issue you'd wish to consider before moving in that direction in terms of is it even necessarily, would the result necessarily be what would be intended? But as mentioned, I don't think that the enrollment at this point in time justifies that approach. Secondly, I'd like to say that although this wouldn't affect the secondary district directly, I think that it would indirectly, in the sense that the stronger the elementary district's financial situation is, the less it's going to encroach into the secondary district. I think that's just the way practically things would work out. So I think that there are some advantages to the secondary district, quite apart from any future look at a parcel tax there. And then the final point is simply with respect to that at this point in time, the Santa Barbara Elementary School District is the only district that is not a basic aid district on the South Coast of our feeder districts. All of Goleta, Hope, Montecito Union, and Cold Spring, I believe, now are basic aid districts. Someone told me the other day that Montecito Union receives $12,000 a student or something along those lines. If the Santa Barbara Elementary District were to receive those funds per student, that would be equivalent to an additional $25 or $30 million in the Santa Barbara Elementary District every year. Well, in light of that, it seems to me that going to the community and saying we'd like $500,000 may be received as a reasonable request. So with those thoughts, as I say, my purpose tonight has been to present an idea for your consideration. If there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to try to answer them or respond to them. If there were interest in the board in pursuing this, I'd encourage you perhaps to consider either setting up a board subcommittee that might consider the matter and post a meeting and see who shows up, or discuss it at a board facilities workshop. So those would be some possibilities. So.
Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Cordero.
Well, I have one just really quick question based on the data that you just showed us. How did the closing of St. Francis Hospital factor into your data? Because some of the spikes in the births at Cottage Hospital seem to coincide with the closing of St. Francis.
Okay. I talked with the director of the person at Cottage Hospital who provided this data, and they said that by 1997 the birthing center at St. Francis had closed, and so that the births after that point were were not affected by the closure of St. Francis?
I actually can speak to that because my second son was one of the last group that was born there in 2000. The birth center closed in 2001.
Okay.
And it was about 350 to 450 babies that were born there every year. So that would have had a significant effect on that spike that you saw in 2001.
Could well be. As I said, that the information I received was information from Cottage. So if I'm in error, I'll try to confirm that with them. But I'll certainly, as I said, I know the data from Goleta Valley Hospital is similar to the data at Cottage, the numbers, and if I could look at that again, hand that to me. Let's go back to the Cottage.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
We are falling significantly behind our schedule. We still have several public speakers on this item. What I would suggest is that we take the public speakers, and then should we choose to put this on a future agenda for further discussion, that would be a good direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Laura Wilson, followed by Mike Zarate.
Hello, I'm speaking as a member of Citizens for Neighborhood Schools, and I would urge the board to thoroughly explore the potential and possibility of such a parcel tax. In light of the budget process and publicity, I would further urge you to consider a very discreetly targeted series of goals. One would be to provide the specific support to the 9 elementary schools, of course, and keep them open. 2 would be to restore the elementary district music program, and perhaps to even be more specific than Dr. Ebenstein recommended, would be to actually state to provide for PE and after-school sports at the campuses. You know, be very specific. And even possibly to start restoring some of the librarian services, credentialed librarians who are cut, because of course that does free up teaching time and allows teachers breathing room when they have a credentialed librarian on campus. So to be very specific, I think would enhance the opportunities for passage. They'll want specific, taxpayers, voters, will want specific programs that directly benefit the students. Citizens for Neighborhood School does believe that such a specific plan would find voter support, and we do urge you to explore this possibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Zarate, followed by Denise Adams.
Thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to take a quick side note and say kudos to the person who reorganized the donation section on your agenda. That's great, having it by school, so good job, whoever thought of that. I think the parcel tax, as you know, my children are not, we do not live in the Santa Barbara Elementary District, and I think that there certainly is a perceived notion out there that the secondary district is subsidizing the elementary district. And so I think that if this would be a great idea to have the elementary district provide more funds to educate their children. And I agree with Lanny, he did a great job on this, and I think that the smaller tax with very specific function, a restricted, it would go into a restricted fund, not into the general fund. I think that would be something the taxpayers would accept. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Adams, followed by David Holmes.
Hi, I'm Denise Adams, representing supporters of advanced and GATE education in our community. And we'd like to encourage you to seriously consider the proposal and all other fundraising opportunities to help support the elementary district. From the mountaintop, you're there. And while money doesn't guarantee a quality education, your district can't do it without it. Look what you're surrounded by and the discrepancy of what little money you have to work with what the other districts have to work with. those of us in SAGE, of course, support as many learning opportunities as possible to engage students. We support earmarking the money. Again, I think you'll get support for a $20 parcel tax when you specify what it will go to. The music program is critical. We all know that those students who have the opportunity to go to an after-school program benefit from that, especially those who have dual working parents. And we also know that if we don't engage students in the elementary level, we lose them at the secondary. As an alumni of Santa Barbara Junior High School, as a parent who loves the school, it saddens me that we're facing right now the reality that when parents have choice and can go different places, that when a school has to be in the program improvement bracket, it affects parental choice and student choice. By offering more electives, by offering and strengthening the music program, what separates our secondary schools in Santa Barbara is that we offer something that the private schools don't. But we want the elementary students from Santa Barbara district to be able to participate in those programs. And the only way you can do that is with money to fund them at the elementary district. And that's not criticizing you people. I know everyone's sincere, but you can't do it without money. So I hope you'll consider a parcel tax of $20, or going to the community, looking at strengthening the Public Education Foundation or revamping it. But I think we should have a goal up here that our elementary district should be the best in the state, like the other levels of our education. Thank you.
Thank you. David Holmes, followed by Alice Post.
I'm David Holmes, and I'm the district co-chair for the performing arts until June. I'd like to thank Mr. Ebenstein for bringing this forward, this idea of a parcel tax that would actually give the board the monetary freedom to fund elementary music in our elementary school district. I'm for anything that will help support the arts in education, especially at this very critical age in elementary school. I would add to that, though, I would add creative dramatics and choral music. Forever we have been restricted to instrumental music, and so much happens in a really integrated creative dramatics program and a really integrated choral music program. All of those, of course, feed directly into the secondary. I could support this parcel tax. Hold your hand up if you'd support a parcel tax. I can't believe it. I've never met a group of people that wanted to have their taxes increased ever. A better way might be to go back and revisit the budget cuts that you made and take another really hard look at your administrative overhead and cut there. And cut some of the support staff that these people all have who try to watch out and make sure they don't make mistakes. Cut there instead of the programs that benefit children. Thank you.
And last, Alice Post.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. I support a parcel tax in the elementary district. I live in the elementary district. I don't think that $20 is enough. I think you should double that. It should be a $40 parcel tax. What would you do with $1 million from the community? What if the community offered you $1 million? Could you think of a good way to spend it? How will you know if you don't ask? I think the Santa Barbara High School Alumni Association is one of the 3 top associations in the country. Is that correct? Where are we living? We live in Santa Barbara, one of the most desirable communities in the world. One of the wealthiest communities in the world. Do you think that $1 million $40 per household or building would hurt the people who live here. I think they could easily afford it. When I'm a graduate of Roosevelt School, Santa Barbara Junior High, and Santa Barbara High School. When I went to Roosevelt, Miss Fritsch came in and introduced every instrument of the orchestra, and everyone in 4th grade could learn an instrument. And I learned to play the violin in the auditorium of Roosevelt School. When I went to Santa Barbara Junior High, there were 7 periods. And I took foreign language every year, and I took a music elective every year, 7th through 12th grade. And I took 2 foreign languages many years and 2 music electives every year. But the quality the benefits have decreased.
30 seconds.
The benefits have decreased. And I find that really sad. And so Lanny has hit the ball into your court with a really great idea. Why don't you ask the community for some money? And I'd like to see you hit the ball back and keep that ball in the air and form a subcommittee.
Thank you.
And ask the community for the money.
Thank you. Board members' comments or okay, Ms. Parker, go ahead.
Just quickly, because I want to thank Dr. Ebenstein for bringing it forward. I have some issues with some of the data that you presented, but I do think it's very important for us to have this conversation with the community now, as Mrs. Post also said. It's just been very, very hard to see the cuts that have been going on in this district, especially in terms of arts and music. And I do think it's time for us to be proactive. We are in declining enrollment, and I think that we're going to continue in declining enrollment. We're not going to be getting more money from the state for this. We need to change things right here. So I hope that this will come back to us as a discussion for us to have soon. Thanks.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. It was, I think, some very provocative information. I think there are some hurdles. I think it's worthy of serious consideration, and I hope to see it on a future agenda as well.
Is that then board direction to put it on a future agenda?
Please.
Okay, I see enough heads nodding.
And to come back specifically with information about how much the election would cost. That was where we got stuck on it the last time, was in order to move forward, the district had to pay for the cost of the election, so. Okay.
Good.
Dr. Noel.
I want to thank Dr. Ebenstein for the presentation, for the information. I had a couple really little factual questions. Do condos count?
Yeah, well, every parcel. By the way, Lanny, I'm sorry, Dr. Ebenstein. Can we get copies of your overheads to put in the board brief so the board has those as well?
I'll drop them by.
Good, thank you.
In fact, I'll give them to you right now. Well, the data that I've heard is that there are 1,300 units in the city of Santa Barbara that are either under construction or in the pipeline at various phases of in the process right now. So I think that there will be a little bit of a bump in enrollment from that. Most of it is condos, though. So how many children generate per condo is, an open question, but there will be a little bit more growth, I think, than there's historically been, so there should be a little pop that way. Once again, the information on St. Francis is something I'll be very interested to try to ascertain further, because that's, and is very important, so.
It's a parcel if there's a deed?
Oh, yeah, if it's, okay, as far as whether a condo would pay it as, yeah, I believe so, yeah, sure. If it's an independent.
Now, this new model, or new to me model of, because they're not selling these $1 million condos really very, very fast.
Right.
They're now breaking them up, and so 4 or 5 people would own each own a fifth, but still get a deed, unlike a timeshare. That would count too?
I believe it's by the parcel. However many people own it wouldn't affect it. They wouldn't each pay $20. I think they'd each pay $4.
Well, I recall getting crucified for suggesting once that we consider a parcel tax. So I'm glad you brought it forward,
Okay,
Dr.
yeah.
Evenstein.
Timing is everything.
And I just have to say that it runs against the grain. Going back to my first economics class when I learned what a regressive tax was, it runs against the grain in that sense. But and it's easy for me to say, $25 a year is not a lot of money. I don't know whether everybody in the community can say that who owns a parcel, and I'd like to learn more about that. But I certainly support bringing it back, and I again thank you very much for bringing it forward in your group.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 9:20, we have item F2 before a break. Do people wish to take a briefer break right now? Yes? How about a 5-minute break, and then we will press on. We're on our conference agenda. Item F2, report on nutrition services budget for fiscal year 07-08.
And Ed Diaz, our Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, will be introducing this.
Yes, Dr. Sarvis, thank you for this opportunity. And the board has every year receives a report on the state of the Nutrition Services Department. And I feel very confident this year that you'll like the report. They've done a lot of work on it. Frank, Lynn, and Dave, and Debbie Badger, and I know they're around here somewhere. They were here earlier. But I would like to make a couple of comments before we get started with their actual presentation. Just cut to the chase, I think. I think in Santa Barbara, as we invest in these community initiatives for healthier children, healthier eating, more organic produce, much better food, much higher quality food than we have traditionally served children in the past. I don't feel, as your chief financial officer, that it's going to be possible to have a food service program that's going to break even or possibly be a little in the black. I think that going forward, we're going to have to adopt, as a school district, a policy or a commitment to child nutrition or to nutrition services that says, yes, we want to do all of those things. But given the cost structure, which you're about to see this evening, you'll see that to do a lot of these additional items is going to cost. There are going to be some costs that will not be recovered in the traditional funding model of child nutrition. So we're jumping in with both feet, and we've been very active with Harding and Peabody and everybody that wants to do these things, and we're highly supportive of them. But I think that the board should know, and the public should know, that there is going to be some associated costs with that. On that, I will, is Frank here, and Debbie? Frank Lynn, our food service director, and his very capable accountant, Debbie Badger.
Thank you. First thing we'd like to discuss is some of the things that we've been doing this year, some of the directions that we have been trying to, some of the programs we've been trying to pursue and the directions that we're going into. First of all, at La Cumbre, we are in the midst of a scratch cooking pilot program. We have redesigned the menu specific to La Cumbre. Now, La Cumbre School provides meals for the La Cumbre students. It provides meal for the Santa Barbara Community Academy, and it also provides meal for Montecito Union School District. We are using more farm fresh vegetables and produce coming from the Growers Collaborative. It's a organization out of Ventura and Santa Barbara that uses sustainable produce grown in the county from our farmers. It quite literally comes from the farms to the school on the same day. They might even harvest the food on the farms in the morning and bring it directly to the schools on their trucks. 60% of the menu offerings at La Cumbre are now done from scratch cookings, not using any commodity processed or processed items. We did 2 weeks ago a food fair for the district at La Colina Junior High School. It was our third fair. We preceded that food fair with an assembly for the after-school program children. We wanted to give them some training, if you will, some impetus for coming to the food fair. At the AOK assembly, we had representatives from Santa Barbara County Department of Environmental Health and the Santa Barbara County Department of Public Health. Environmental Health did a hand washing demonstration and talked about personal hygiene, and Public Health gave a program about the food pyramid and did a very nice little interactive program. As each student came in, they were presented a sticker identifying themselves as a fruit, a vegetable, or whatever, and then they had to break out and form amongst themselves a complete reimbursable meal. And it was a lot of fun, and that was done by Jessica St. John of Public Health and Norma Campos Ibarra from Environmental Health, who was a graduate of McKinley School, did the demonstration with the black light and showing how disgusting your hands really are, whether you realize it or not, or no matter how well you wash your hands. And trust me, because I was the guinea pig. We followed it with the food fair, where we had over 30 representatives from the industry bringing in items for the students to taste. 300 students came in, about 225 of them from the after-school program, the AOK program. We also had the Environmental Health, we had Public Health, and the California Department of Education, their commodities division, sent a contingent of people to explain the commodities program, how it works and how it benefits our district financially and in terms of nutrition. We gauged the likes and dislikes in a not very scientific fashion, but we did the best we could. We did two things. Every child who came in was given a bag with some presents and things, but also had a survey where we'd just simply ask them, what do you like in the school district right now in your cafeteria? What don't you like? And what did you like best at the food show? Also, the children were given stickers. In front of each item that was tested for the children to taste, if they liked it, they put a sticker down. And I sat there over the next couple of days afterwards counting stickers. So at least I got some math tutoring taken care of. The San Marcos High School, and with the food fair, we were using those results to gauge what items the students like the best. That's the first step, what they like the best from the food show. Then we will get all of the CN label or the nutritional statements from those products, make sure they meet the standards that are required, the new standards as of July 1st, and then we'll move forward from there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
We're
sorry.
going to need to move some to get to
San
the budget.
Marcos High School, we have incorporated their student store under nutrition services, and that is simply to give them a hand with some of their administrative situations and to make sure that they are in compliance with what they offer their students. In the STAR testing, breakfast in the classroom, the only way we were able to provide extra nutrition at no cost to the schools was to offer them the option of having a breakfast in the classroom. And individual schools chose to either take advantage of that or not. We simply provided for those who asked for it. 5 sites requested it, and we served approximately an additional 1,000 breakfasts per day. We are a member of the Partners for Fit Youth. We are meet with them and discuss strategies for wellness. The Child Development Program will be incorporated back under the National School Lunch Program starting July 1st. And the Harding Pilot Program will begin August 24th, and we will continue to work with the Harding administration in administering and helping with their program. And Monroe, starting in the 2007-2008 year, will also increase scratch cooking preparation for that year to about 50 to 60% of their items will be from scratch. The budget. Total revenues, as you can see, are estimated to be $3,800,000 $35,963.
We have a copy of this
You
in
have
our
a copy,
agenda.
so you can
Yes.
see where we're at, and I can answer any questions that you might have concerning aspects of that budget.
I have questions. I don't know if Mrs. Harder, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
MUSD, 50,000. Are you expecting the end of that contract, or what's going on there?
I spoke with Dick Douglas, the superintendent, 2 Fridays ago, and he assured me that while they were looking at a number of options, by no means had they ruled out the fact that they might re-sign with us next year again. So that's why it's in parentheses. That 50,000 is not included in that budget.
Okay, Mr. Hedjong?
What's also not included in that budget would be the food cost associated with that 50,000. So we won't just be adding 50,000 to the bottom line. We'll have to subtract out the food cost.
Gotcha. And 5750, interfund district support, can you talk about that?
That is the inter-district support at the percentage that I was given by the district. That's standard. It's a percentage of our total income.
Could we get an explanation of that?
I believe it is something into the effect of probably about 4% or 4.25% of our income.
If it is not the indirect or regularly direct cost that is passed on to all programs, there was an additional charge. I believe that's the standard indirect cost that we charge to all programs. There was an additional charge being assessed to the food service, nutrition service department for custodial services, in addition to those direct costs, which, Frank, I don't know, did we take that out of there? I told you to take that out.
Yes, we had.
It is in there at the reduced amount that we're going to be funding next year, the actual usage versus the.
It was, yes, it just
larger
was an
amount.
overassessment, if you will. And so the 5750, that intra-district support, or the, all programs are charged direct, indirect costs, and that's what that represents. And we took off the additional charge for custodians. Simply, that's already included in the direct cost. They shouldn't be paying extra for that.
But this isn't a charge to the program, it's income to the program.
No, that was an expense to the
It was an
program.
expense.
Oh, okay.
It's a 5,000 expense.
Yes, sir. The 5,000 object codes are
Expenses,
are
okay, just
expense
not
codes.
labeled. Gotcha.
And this means that the
Total, I should have put total services and support expense. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We were helping.
But this means that the nutritional services program contributed $166,730. No, that's what I'm trying.
No,
It's
sir.
an expense to the program, right?
Yes, sir.
Who gets the money?
The general fund, the district,
Okay, that
the
helps.
school district. School
And,
district
and,
gets the money.
and the rationale is as you just explained.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you look to the bottom of the page, Dr. Noel, you'll see that we've tried to express the budget in a profit and loss type of format so that you go right down to the bottom and see that we're going to come very close to breaking even next year. We project a small deficit of 79,000. I think that's prudent. We could have shaved the numbers and put up a rosy picture, but we're not sure about the Montecito contract. Costs are still going up, and I think it's better for you to see just the true nitty-gritty, and that's what we're hoping. If we can come in with that, we'll be very happy.
If I may interject, for this year's budget, based on the second interim, we're hoping to break even this year and not have a deficit. We're just keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be very close to zero on that. And one thing also to keep in mind is that fuel cost affects us, and fuel has been rising.
And there was one additional handout that I gave to the board that wasn't part of Frank's presentation, and it was a copy of the revenue limit calculation. And it's just highlighted in the margins. There are two little asterisks. The amount of money that is transferred from food service into the general fund on an annual basis. And I believe it's to the tune of $260. I don't have it in front of me. I know you do. But at some point in the future, we'd like to see that discontinue, and that money would then go to support these new programs and new initiatives. Currently, with the state of general fund finances, we're just not able to give that up at this point. But in retrospect, if you looked over the last 5 or 6 years, it's probably been well over $1 million transferred out of food service into the general fund.
Well, now I'm really confused because I thought over the last 5 or 6 years, we were subsidizing food services to the tune of over $1 million
Well, you didn't
out
have
of the general fund to them.
the Meals for Needy. The Meals for Needy calculation wasn't brought up to you before. I know, not to the best of my knowledge. The board was not made aware of the Meals for Needy calculation, and that's a big amount of money.
Because we had data and we made decisions to give money to the.
Well, I can't speak for what happened in the past, Dr. Noel. I can just tell you that it is a significant, if a business, a $3.8 million business, has to take $260,000 right off the top, that's about 8% of their revenue, and it'd be pretty hard to make your numbers if somebody come in and took that kind of a bite out of your income. But that's not the issue. The issue is we're going to maintain the status quo. The Nutrition Service Department is doing many things to make themselves more fiscally solid. One thing Frank left off of his list of accomplishments is and Dave is part of this, the plans for the Santa Barbara High School cafeteria have been submitted to the DSA in Sacramento. That is a very high priority item for us to get that cafeteria open to serve those kids, in addition to providing services for other customers as well.
Yeah, let's finish with Ms. Parker.
My one other quick question is you list the meal prices for what children are charged in the elementary and secondary district and adults. But what is it now that the National School Lunch Program is reimbursing, or how much are they providing for children that don't pay per lunch?
Currently, the state and federal reimbursement together is about $2.57 for lunch and about $1.60 for breakfast for a no-cost meal. It's that less 30 cents and less 40 cents a meal for reduced price students.
So essentially, you could say that the students that are low income and get sort of nutrition provided by the state and federal government, they're sort of subsidizing our higher income students.
To a certain extent, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
We figure about 55% of our income is fixed from that amount that we don't have any leeway over. The rest is income from charges. And in speaking with Mr. Diaz, we're concentrating more on increasing participation this year, and that's why we're not recommending a meal fee increase.
Speaking of participation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I say, how have we increased or stayed the same, or?
We are a little bit under last year, and part of that reason is the fact that we do not have a kitchen at the high school, and that affects participation at the high school specifically. In the elementary school, it's fairly close to what it was last year, a little bit of a small dip. We've had some increase in breakfast. We have had some minor decrease in lunches, but in terms of income, the income is pretty close to being the same in the elementary district.
If I may make one last comment to the board, if food service, it's very simple. There's two things to remember with food service: eligibility and participation. So we have a large number of children that are eligible. The key is getting them into the cafeterias to participate. Another thing that we have discussed is the possibility of eliminating the 40-cent charge for the reduced meals. That can oftentimes generate money, because the poor families that have multiple children don't have enough money to give one child the 40 cents. They don't give anybody the 40 cents, so none of the kids eat. I discovered in my past practice, by eliminating that 40-cent charge, I got all of those kids to come into the cafeteria. So it's all about eligibility, all about participation. And Frank gets paid on the rates are set by the eligibility. The amounts he gets paid is by the participation. So it's very simple.
Go ahead, Ms. Cordero.
I know that in the past we've talked about participation perhaps being influenced by the time that students have. I know continuously get letters, et cetera, from DP students complaining about the lack of time that they have for lunch period. And I'm wondering if we have looked at any ways to try to maybe adjust some of those times, either, well, I don't know how to do that, but I'm wondering if that, I imagine that would have a fairly significant impact on participation.
Well, I don't want to speak for Frank, but I've got my two assistant superintendents here on the right will tell you the demands of the student day, the educational day, continue to increase. The lowest hanging fruit on the tree in terms of finding time to increase program time is always going to be lunchtime. So the lunch hours keep getting shorter and shorter. They run the kids through there, and this is no disrespect to our wonderful ladies and gentlemen in our nutrition services department. It's just you got to feed 500 or 600 kids in 25 minutes. So a dining experience it is not. Okay, and you're right, Ms. Cordero. If you were to increase the time that the children could enjoy their food, interact with the other students, maybe perhaps learn a little bit about the foods they were eating, I think it would be very beneficial. There was one last item, a financial matter of the nutrition services that has been a topic for the last couple of years about this loan. There is an outstanding loan from food services that's going to be repaid to the general fund. We're just going to write that off. That loan is going to be a write-off. It's not going to be repaid. I don't see it possible this year or next. I think in light of the other adjustment that I mentioned previously, it's appropriate to district for to absorb that cost. The auditors would like us to recognize that as a write-off. Mr. Wolf and I have discussed this already, and it's just going to be written off the books, and then we're going to start clean and see where we go from there. I'm optimistic that Frank and Dave have put together a good plan to get the kids in our district interested in their school cafeterias, and that's what our main objective is.
I have to react to that, Mr. Diaz. And you weren't here, but I consider that a monumental act of bad faith. We made decisions to lend that money in a public forum, rationale to the public, and it was a loan. And it was a loan that affected the elementary district particularly. And to hear that we're going to have an administrative decision that effectively undoes what was a commitment made publicly to subsidize on a temporary basis the food services program, and to see that as a staff decision without that coming to the public, and I just find that unacceptable.
Well, I need to step in. It's a little more involved than that because what we're doing is addressing the auditor's concerns.
I read the audit, Dr.
Yes.
Sarvis. I understand that. But I also have a pretty clear memory about the discussion at the time of that loan.
Yes, we certainly did, and that's why when we talked about this last time, we said, you know, there are some other issues that the board is not aware of. One is that the Meals for Needy Pupils money goes directly to the general fund, and that's some $280,000 a year. Now, we could put that money into nutrition services, in which case we'd be well into the black, or we could keep putting that money into the general fund and maintain a loan to nutrition services, but one way or the other, it's the board's discretion. If you'd like to.
We've had so many reports on this program.
Yes.
From the best financial staff members we've had, and I don't understand how we never heard about this before. Because I think the board might have considered what you just suggested a couple of years ago.
I agree.
Why didn't we have that option presented to us then?
And this last fall, I believe that option could have been presented. This last fall, the option of whether custodians are paid for out of 20% of a custodian's time is paid for out of nutrition services could have been presented. It wasn't. I'm sorry it wasn't. I didn't know myself. When we talked about this about, 6 weeks ago, I believe we mentioned both this issue and the issue of whether custodians are paid for unduly out of nutrition services. So we can come back at the board's discretion. We can come back with some other way to format it.
Well, you know, I would,
Yes.
I would ask Dr. Sarvis, maybe
Yes.
maybe we could get a new report of the last 5-year history of the food service financial problems with the correcting for the inadequacies of the information we received a couple of years ago. So if it paints a rosier picture, I would welcome that, of course. But I think that
Yes.
that we and the public really need to get this into a proper perspective, because what we're learning right now is that we have been viewing it with missing information.
Yeah,
We all
I'm not
have.
concerned about a rosier picture. I think a clearer picture. You know, money as a loan, money included as part of this particular fund. I mean, I realize it's all going in the same direction, and it's how you account for it, but I think it's not necessarily clear to the public, and I think that it could use some explication.
Whatever positive information you, as a result of this, that reflects in your nutrition services budget, it's going to be negative in your general fund budget. So
That's on my list.
And
of questions to
I
ask you in a minute.
understand. So you're going to be taking it from one place and putting it in the other, and so.
But I think we have a responsibility to make it as clear as
Absolutely.
possible.
And we could certainly
Well-
illustrate that. We
Okay.
could certainly show that on a table.
Go ahead, Ms. Cordero.
I'm sorry. It seems to me that if we've been getting this, 265,000 or 200 and,
It was
I'm looking at 284,000.
It was 434 last year. It was over 400,000 last year.
Couldn't that be, I'm not, couldn't that be in some way considered a repayment of the loan?
I think so, but the auditors won't agree with that because it has to be an actual cash transfer. You borrowed, you gave the district, you gave the Nutrition Services Department cash money, and it has to be repaid in cash money. We can't make any,
So if we.
can't make any journal entries to just, to do it like that. That has to be paid back out of their revenues.
Well, if that money were put into their account instead of into the general fund, they could then use it to pay us back
That's
the
correct.
loan.
That's
right?
correct. That is correct, but your general fund can't take that kind of a hit right now. You can't take another $280,000-$300,000 hit out of your general fund right now.
I'd like to propose something a little further than that, which is rather than produce a budget for next year that shows an $80,000 deficit, then I think we should be deciding what part of money like Meals for Needy Pupils should be obligated to nutrition services and the nutrition services budget so that it is a balanced budget. And then we should expect to live within the means of a balanced budget. So not only should we show where we've been and the numbers we've been shown in the past and the numbers that came into the general fund for meals for needy pupils and custodial fees, but I think we should take a step further, which is to project a budget which is a balanced budget and thereby decide which of those funds should be obligated to this in the upcoming budget. Because we're about to launch into a discussion about next year's budget, and this is really a discussion about what next year's nutrition services budget looks like.
Reaction? Okay. Dr. Noel?
A couple of little things. Travel and conference, $4,500. What's that for?
There are nutrition conferences for the State Nutrition Association where we receive information on the new guidelines, new possibilities, new strategies. We went to several last year. We're specifically was appointed for the wellness policy, and it keeps us up to date on the trends and what's happening within the state and within the other school districts.
Of course, everything depends on these numbers. If this operation's in the black, I don't quarrel with $4,500 for a conference. But if that's coming out of the general fund, I'd rather see it go to music. So it's hard to know.
Another thing it helps us do is to stay legal and not have to pay any money back to the state for misuse of funds or improper accounting for students. So there is some benefit to that, other than just the latest trends or latest strategies. There's information provided at those conferences that does help us stay legal.
Yeah,
and
but I don't know.
Well, there are breakout sessions. California Department of Education will sponsor 3 or 4 breakout sessions concerning regulations, concerning postings, concerning reimbursement applications. Different other groups will offer different breakout sessions. It's sort of, it's training for nutrition services staff. It's, I don't know what the equivalent of it is in terms of the educational staff, but we need to go out and learn things by, we just don't learn by staying here in the district and doing what we've been doing year after year. There's other things to learn out there.
Okay. I'm interested in the 2000 and 3000 series, and I had asked for a breakdown of the various positions, particularly in the 2000 series. See, classified support salaries, 1,000,002, almost 1,000,003. Clerical technical office of 145,000, 96,000 for support administration, and then all the associated benefits, 582,000 worth of benefits. And it would help me, because I'm looking for ways to cut your budget and make savings, and I can't, without learning more about what positions there are. You can't cut based on this presentation of information, and you can't even make an intelligent evaluation when all you've got is these summary numbers of classified support salaries. I think I, as a board member, would like to know more about what those positions are, what they do, and I'd like to be able to ask you questions. Can you get rid of a position or two and save some money? Or has anybody ever asked you that question?
It hasn't been necessary. I ask those questions all the time.
Well, but
we have vacant positions in the
I
district right
understand,
now that
but
we don't fill.
we're the public reps, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it'd be nice if
No-
we could
no-
ask
no
those
one
questions.
has.
Yeah. So anyway, I was hopeful to get that information. I don't know what happened to my request.
The request was to know. I saw that document this afternoon. I'm surprised you don't have it. Yeah, it was completed. It was done.
Are you asking for then job descriptions for each of these positions? Is that what I perceive you'd be asking?
No.
A chart, a list.
Is it here in this stack or what?
We'd ask for a list of positions and what those positions
I saw
cost.
it this afternoon. Frank, you had the.
Yeah, here's.
Yeah, give that to Dr. Noel.
Well, let me
Didn't
get,
make
let me
copies
make
of it, or-
copies of that.
Yeah. Dr. Noel, while they're taking care of that, I would like to comment about making cuts to the nutrition services area from the board perspective. Each one of those kitchens, it's interesting that a classroom is 960 square feet, and it's pretty much, each classroom is the same configuration, and you can move the desks around, et cetera, but you have 960 square feet to work with. Pretty easy to negotiate around the room and create your educational program. These kitchens that we have are all different sizes. If we were a chain of McDonald's or Jack in the Box, you notice those kitchens are all exactly the same, so that they calculate the space from walking from this position to that position, and right down to the science of it. And they have it drilled down now to science. School district kitchens are not built that way. They all are a function of when the school was built in terms of what age it is, how modern it is. I know that the I built 3 kitchens at the time I was in Ventura, and I built them with the labor cost in mind. So I built small, efficient kitchens, specially designed equipment that would accommodate pass-through and reach-through. All of the same stuff I saw going on at McDonald's and Jack in the Box, I incorporated all that into those new kitchens.
Try Superica.
Or Superica, exactly. Any number of well-run establishments, and to a certain degree, our school cafeterias, we can duplicate some of that as we move forward. But the way some of those kitchens are laid out, you have to walk around, you have to go here, you have to go there. So labor cost is high. Just as an example, we developed a heated food cabinet that I requested 270-degree hinges on it so that it opened all the way flat to the side of the cabinet, and it allowed for this piece to slide right into the food line there with no doors open, and the folks could reach right in and put stuff in from the oven on one side and take stuff out onto the food serving line from the other. So there's a long way to go with that, and I don't want to spend too much time, but it kind of brings out the old food director in me when you get me started on this stuff.
Well, I'm asking my questions about the personnel issues because we have, as you are aware, I'm sure, let a number of teachers go, and I get calls from the public, I don't understand, what are you doing? And I think we need to be looking at all of our payrolls and looking to see if there's a possibility of spreading that pain around a little bit.
I can tell you that on any given day, due to absenteeism, with people calling in sick, we are scrambling to staff our kitchens just to serve the students we have, and we don't have the luxury of calling in substitutes. There really are none on call that we can call when someone calls in sick to staff a kitchen. That's just a fact of life.
One strategy for getting more food to the children more quickly so that they can eat in the smaller time that they're having is to have carts out on the malls in the secondary schools so that there's easier access away from the cafeteria. The only problem with that is we need the labor to man those carts. It's a 3-hour position. We have been unable to come up with any number of people willing to work a 3-hour shift, 3.5-hour shift in the district. So we are sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. We need to get food out to the children in more points of sale, but we don't have the staff to man the points of sale.
Have you thought about contracting that out, outsourcing that?
There are some issues with the National School Lunch Program in terms of where the food comes from and how we have to deal with that. So it's not
I
just a
understand
simple.
Redondo Beach High School has been doing that for years, and they have vendors on campus who are all approved, inspected, and so on. I think it'd be worth looking at, because then you don't have to let them pay the capital costs, let them pay the labor costs. They won't bid if there's no money in it. I trust.
Other comments, questions? Just one quick observation. I think a number of us went to see the presentation from Ann Cooper, and then there was an adult ed class at City College the next day, and it was a farm-to-table discussion. And I think a lot of us gained some insight into the highly touted Berkeley Unified School District food program, and it's not as easy as it looks. Oh, thank you. But one point that she emphasized, I know Mr. Diaz said that eligibility and participation were key. And one of the things that they are trying to emphasize, and I know that you're trying to move in this direction, is higher quality food, more desirable food, and then increased participation from students who are paying full price. And she found that that was a real key to turning a corner in her operation, was getting large numbers of participants of students who were paying full price for lunch. Yeah, Ms. Cordero?
I had just one, I think it's a really quick question. In the 500s, I just wondered what water refers to. Is that
Which,
Just
please?
in the 500s?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the 5,000s? It's
5530?
yeah, 5530. Does
That is water softeners. Some of
Water
our
s-
equipment needs the water to be softened in order to, to run through the dishwashers, et cetera.
Oh, so,
So it
okay.
takes some of the minerals out, and it's Purex, PureTech.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Any other quick updates that, I know that this
I'll give you a
particular
quick
item-
update. We're changing pizza next year. The students didn't like the pizza
Right.
this year. They like the pizza at the
Right.
food tasting. We've already changed.
My fifth grader.
Actually, we'll be serving 2 different kinds of pizzas next year, so we do respond, and that was the object of the food fair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lynn. Mr. Hetjunk, Dr. Sarvis,
well,
do you have
I-
some-
I
know
have one
there-
more question at some point.
I know that Dr. Noel will be looking at this list, and I'm sorry it didn't get to you in advance, but
Thank you.
Frank, for the information of the board and myself, just tell us what these positions are. FSSC 1, FSA 2, go ahead.
Food Service Site Coordinator 1 is the cafeteria manager.
So the C is a
The 1
coordinator.
and 2s and 3s are differentiated by the size of the operation and whether they do any more than just one site.
And I believe those are food service assistants.
Food Service
Right.
Assistant 2 is a cook baker, and they will be cooking and doing some baking. FSA 1 is more of an all-purpose kitchen worker who does not have the skills for a cook baker.
Sous chef.
Well, I would think the FSA 2 would be the sous chef. The FSA 1 would be your basic pantry type worker.
Yes. And the SAT FSO?
Those would be the satellite food service operator, those people who work at a regular school, for example, at Roosevelt, and they will work at the junior high school producing their food and then go to Roosevelt and man the POS system and serve the food.
Good.
And Dr. Noel had one more question. Do we know when we will hear from Montecito Union with regard to whether or not they're going to renew a contract with us next year?
In my conversation with Dick two weeks ago, he said he would inform me. I can always give him a phone call and get an update. That's not a problem.
Oh, no, I was just curious if you talked about some
It's-
proposed
Yeah,
date.
I think they were so into the production that 2 Fridays ago that they were still dealing with all of that. I will call him tomorrow and see if we have any kind of an idea, because we do need to make some plans, correct?
Dr. Noel, you had one more question?
Yeah, this is to Mr. Diaz. The $500,000 loan.
Mhm.
So that's, my accounting is rusty, very rusty. But is that like a receivable?
If it was on the district's books, it would be an accounts receivable, yes.
In our second interim, did that get reported then as
I believe it
a
was still
receivable?
on there. Is it a receivable, was it, Bob? It's been on our books.
Okay.
I can check for you.
If that is canceled, if that is written off,
Yes.
that reduces our expected
That's right.
income by
Yeah.
$500,000. What's
That-
that do to our
Well,
financial status under the second interim?
Nothing good.
Well,
I don't have the exact effect in front of me. I don't have the arithmetic here to share with you, but I can certainly prepare something for the board to let you know what that effect would be.
I would think that would be part of this report that we want to see. Now, I just want to go back, the second thing you said was, or the first thing you said was, it's not going to be possible to have a food service program that is in the black. Okay.
I don't believe that. I don't believe it is going to be possible.
Okay, but at the bottom of this, we're saying we got $79,000 loss that we hope to mitigate and eliminate. I have trouble putting those together. That would
Well,
put
we're
us-
going to be close. I wanted to create the expectation of the board and to inform the board that I'm not trying to be a doomsayer or a Chicken Little up here, but I want to create a reasonable expectation of the board for their nutrition services program, given the new initiatives, given the new awareness of health and diet in our community. There are going to be increasing demands for higher quality foods and services out of our cafeterias. All I'm saying is giving that new cost dynamic, if you will, and the static structure of our funding from the federal government, it's going to be very difficult and very challenging for the Nutrition Services Department to operate in the black. And that's all I was saying, Dr. Noel. I wasn't trying to.
That's enough.
I wasn't trying to say it was going to be a huge loss. I'm just saying I think when I first saw this budget a couple of weeks ago, the Montecito Union revenue was still in there. It was about $100,000 positive, to be honest with you. And I looked at it as a former food service director, and I said, what about this? What about that? Take this out, take that out. I wanted to present you a more conservative, a more realistic financial picture. Not that they were putting things in there to make it look prettier than it was. It's just I always take a more conservative view from a fiscal standpoint, and I found that served me well in the past. And I did so in reviewing the nutrition services budget as well. And so I just say to you, in the simplest context, as we move forward with some of these fine nutritional initiatives that are taking place in our community, of which we want to support and we want to be part of, it's going to be difficult to do that within the cost structure that we are constrained by.
Basically, we should be on notice that this is going to cost the general fund some money for the foreseeable future?
Well, I don't want to go that far. I think the President Harder mentioned, hey, we serve some better food, we get more kids in there. I'm a revenue guy. I've always approached, I never worried too much about the bottom line. I worried about the top line. And if you put enough on your top line, you don't have to worry about your bottom line. So the key is get those kids into our cafeterias, get them interested in the food that we're serving in there. Take a look at the possibility of the impact of reducing the 40 cents for the reduced price children. I actually learned how to do that at Ventura from your old food service director here that wasn't charging the 40 cents, and it was a simple dynamic. We got a $1.37 reimbursement for a child for a reduced, back in those days. We got a $1.37 for a reduced child, and the cost of the meal was 90 cents. So you'd walk up to somebody and say, would you buy $1.37 for 90 cents? Well, we'd do that all day long, I think. It's a pretty good deal. So those kind of things, that kind of creative thought is going to be at the forefront of Frank and Dave and myself. I'm very interested in the Nutrition Services Department for a variety of reasons. I want to see it be sound fiscally on its own 2 feet. I want to see the kids get the maximum benefit out of it that are in our district. It pains me when I go to cafeterias and I see them rush through the line because there's just no time for them to enjoy their luncheon meal. And so there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot at stake for us to do a better job, and not just all fiscally.
I would simply add a wish to your wish list, and I'd like to see the $500,000 back in the elementary school district.
Okay. We are not going to resolve that one this evening, although I certainly think we can get more explanation and information in the future. Item F3, a report on the 07-08 budget development.
And Mr. Diaz will deliver this report.
I'm going to move over to the podium for this. Tonight is going to be a continuation of the discussions that we have been having here about our budget since early January, actually, when we were working on the second interim and began the budget reduction process. Many of those same calculations, many of those same areas of the expenditures and revenue items of the district we visited then, we revisited again and again and again in the budget process. I was I had an analogy on building the budget, and it's much like constructing a large aircraft in a big hangar. The parts are kind of disassembled around the floor. The wings are over here, the tail's over here, the fuselage is over here, and the engine's here. Teams are working on each one of those components, and gradually it comes together. That's not a bad analogy for how a school district budget is built. And I would say right now, we have it kind of on the hangar floor. You can see all the parts, and it's slowly coming together. It involves, just briefly, you can read all that. 9,000 account code strings are constantly reviewed. The discussions we've had here, January 23rd, the 13th, 17th, 7th, 15th, and 24th, and more to come. I particularly, and some of these statements here are my opinions. This next one is one of them. I don't think the quality of our budget development process is acceptable for a district of our type, the Ed Code 35110 districts, with 2 districts, 3 budgets, a single administration and board. I think our budget development process will see some big improvements over the next year or so. I think the board will be happy with that. Business office, we're going to initiate the formation of a budget advisory committee in August, as I was advised by the board in a recent meeting. And I think the development of an enrollment projection model should be the first order of business for our budget advisory committee. Right now, we don't have a formal model that we use year after year. We really appreciate people like Dr. Ebenstein who will volunteer their time and offer information that he's generated. But I would suggest that the birth rate and all that historical data, those are just part of the recipe of the gumbo, if you will. And sorry about all the food analogies, but you guys knew what you were getting into when you hired me. But certainly, enrollment projection, it is like making a very complex dish. You have all of the regular, the birth rates, the cohort survival from grade to grade. You have all of these tangible empirical factors, but it comes down to the end. When you're making that dish, it comes down to that last thing, and that's the subjective view of the chef, me in this case. And I looked at the enrollment projection, so I'm going to show you a little later. And I went back through because I've seen the trend, and I actually lowered it a little bit, not drastically, but I wasn't comfortable with the number that cranked out of all the empirical machinery. It just seemed a little too optimistic. So I just made a subjective call, dropped it a little lower, and I think we can all be more comfortable with those numbers. Future updates will take place on June 8th, on June 12th, on the 26th. Of course, we'll come back for the budget. And I know the board and Dr. Noel, I've listened to the comments from the board. I've heard it from members of the community about cutting back on your administrative staff. But I'm going to tell you, and I'll say it again and again, do it in some place besides your accounting department, because you lose the ability to track revenues and manage expenditures. It's just that simple. So we still do have some challenges in that area. Our cash flow is still a challenge. We're working on all of those things. One of the big problems the district has had is an inadequate expenditure monitoring because we don't have the people to do it, nor to work with the monitoring the site spending criteria. Position control are the largest contributors to our ongoing deficit spending. If I had to give you a fiscal solvency plan, it would be that item right there. This one right here. Just about that one would work as a fiscal solvency plan. And the biggest areas of deficiency are position control, internal audit, ASB accounts, donation accounts, service to our sites, ongoing account analysis, and accuracy and timing of reports. And I would venture to say, again, this is my opinion, that staff cuts over the past may have saved $250,000, but may have cost you up to $2 million, just because you weren't able to manage your business properly. This next slide is from the School Services May Revise workshop that was attended last week, and it is a comparison of what the budget was proposed to be in January, and again what the May Revise recommended. The Test 2, the things that probably will have questions on Test 2 versus Test 3B. I just happen to have something about Test 2 here. Test 1, there's 3 tests to fund schools, and I'm not going to go too long into this because it takes too long. Test 1 is when you got a lot of money. Test 2 is when you don't have too much money. And Test 3 is when you have hardly any money. And Test 3B is just like a safety net under Test 3. So this year we went from an optimistic view of Test 2 down to a safety net view of Test 3. The other item worth noting is special ed COLA is 3.3%. There's no COLA on the federal programs. The federal government does not provide the COLA for the federal programs. Other than that, there's not much new that wasn't in here before. They did increase the statewide enrollment decline. They decided not to fund the transportation. That was a big one. They were going to take that as another revenue limit adjustment, if you will. That was going to cost us money. They decided not to do that. So not much change with regards from January to May, but in either direction. Nothing good news either in that. Again, this is from their thing. They'll just briefly go over it. The good news, the bad news. I think a little more COLA. More money for career tech, nutrition, teachers, no cuts, some new categorical programs. The transportation shift, as I mentioned previously, was not put into effect. The bad news, there's a $370 million to $500 million budget error in Sacramento, depending on who you listen to. But those are big numbers, and so that has to be reconciled. Mandates haven't been funded.
In which direction?
Excuse me, sir.
I don't need to ask. Never mind.
It's from the Legislative Analyst's Office, pointed out from the Governor's Budget Office that they had made a mathematical error in the tune of $370 million, and somebody else says it's $500 million, to be determined. Not to us. Just at the state level. It gets shared by everybody. The bifurcated special ed COLA refers to the fact that the federal government pays no COLA on their programs. Cash flow, as I mentioned, is a continuous concern of our district here. These were just some options. Option 3, we can move money from fund to fund. We've done that in this district before. It has to be repaid by the next year. Option 2, tax and revenue anticipation notes, TRANS, those are short interest-bearing notes. Our district is in the process of securing one of those. Option 3 is borrowing from the county treasurer. I don't know that, I've never seen a district have to do that, but those are options all in Ed Code that are available to the district. As I mentioned previously, our district is in the process of securing a $12 million TRAN to meet our short-term cash requirements. Now, beginning with the budget assumptions, when the superintendent asked me to do this, I said, we're not going to have a lot ready by tonight. There's just not going to be a lot. But he said, Ed, I don't want you rushing in here on June 26th and giving everybody a bunch of spreadsheets to see and then say, pass the budget. So what I have tonight, I think we've kind of done some work on the enrollment projections, but I wasn't happy with all the raw information, but I think I've given you a decent look at this point in time. This information, as you can see, does not it excludes the charter schools. It was easier to present that way. It was clear. It was a cleaner look. The bottom line is I'm projecting a 192 student decline for next year for both districts combined. And I think that's kind of consistent with numbers I see. I see some people project 237. I came up with a number minus 170. So what it tells me, at least the range, we're in the ballpark. Now, there's going to have to be some fine tuning done to that to come up with our exact number, but both Mr. Wolf and I were relatively comfortable with the 192 number as not being, it's kind of a Goldilocks number, not too low, not too high. I think it's something that we're going to come close to. and I shouldn't ever use that analogy again, the Goldilocks economy. We've heard too much of that kind of talk. But the bottom is our estimate of our revenue limit income based on the estimated P2 ADA. You see the number of students in each district combined, their base revenue limit based on the May revise, and then, of course, these are unrestricted revenue limit dollars that come into the budget, 87 million so far. This information may change based on our P2, but the revenue limit numbers will not change based on the May revise unless they do something in committee. The other budget assumptions, and I'll just go down quickly. The restricted general fund, unrestricted and restricted general fund this year is going to total about 123 million. Salary and benefits will be about 98 million of that. Utilities are scheduled to increase about 125,000. Our charter school ADA is about 1199 at second interim. Charter schools continue to increase statewide. Santa Barbara School District will result in a property tax revenue transfer of $5,688,000 to support our charter schools. And of course, we do recapture some of that, and I'll have further information on that as we progress with our budget development discussions. Health insurance costs, we're going to go up by about $100,000, the district's portion, as that continues to increase, but not at such a precipitous rate as before. We have a full 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. We have reserves, although they're modest, will be included for future salary increases, technology development, GASB, other post-employee retirement benefits, GASB 45, and they will appear as designated components of the ending balance. You've heard me refer to this over the last several months as a prudent strategy to set money aside for our future obligations. We don't really have a lot of excess money to do it, but we need to start somewhere and put these monies aside, otherwise we'll never get there.
Just to interrupt you quickly, we'll be bringing the issue of post-retirement benefits to the board separately so that we can discuss what we might do with that in the future. So that'll be on a future board agenda.
And I simply wanted to acknowledge it from a fiscal point of view that there is a liability that we need to begin preparing for at some point in time in the future.
Have we begun that process yet?
When we bring you the budget for 0708, Dr. Noel, you'll see some money set aside for that. We haven't done previously.
That's the first time.
This will be the first time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little just.
Or I think we did some at second interim. I'm not sure. I think the second interim report showed.
Those 2 points in a row you used the word reserve.
Yes,
Those
sir.
are not the same, right?
The
The second one is not part of the 3%.
No, sir. These are going to be special reserves. I might have put that word in front of there.
Okay.
But they'll be designated components of our ending balance. So you'll see them in the ending balance as actual line items. But they aren't part of your 3% reserve. No, they're not. There's a lot of ways for us to look at saving money and increasing our revenues, and I'm going to be reviewing some of the unrestricted resources later here. Just a couple seconds, I'll have something to put up. We found that we could be more prudent with using our regular teachers for pupil day release. We could do that more cost effectively with subs. We've heard it before, though, there aren't enough subs. So that's going to be something that you can't just sit up here and say, we'll do it. We don't have enough subs in our system to completely eliminate that. But those are some of the areas that we're going to look at. I want to, at this point, before I go to the conclusion, I want to ask Dave to put on the overhead for me just the area of the unrestricted general fund. Now this is for resource 0000. These are the 5,000 accounts, which are support and services. And again, you see both districts and the combined, what the total is. This number 6,546,000 ties into our second interim report. So this is good data. But you go down the line here and you just start looking at these different numbers, and I promised the board I would reduce this area of the budget by at least $50,000, and I intend to do that through a variety of ways, of just shaving, looking at each one of those items line by line and managing them more prudently. A lot of money in contracted services here, consultants, and this is just the unrestricted portion of the general fund. This is the object resource code 0000. So I can't believe that out of $6,546,000, I can't find you 50,000. So that I made it a low number because I didn't want to be overly optimistic. On the other hand, I wanted to use this to illustrate to you all the different cost areas in the budget and our opportunity to find some money to reduce those expenditures.
Is this going to be made available in hard copy?
I think you have it with
Is
your in your packet there.
Oh, I'm sorry. And this is available to the public?
Yeah, I put a whole bunch of them
Back
out
there
there
on the table?
here, and we can probably put this on our
The
web.
next page was blank in mine. That's
Oh, well, that's that printer. May I have all those blank pages back? I want to put them back in the Xerox machine. No, I'm just kidding you.
It says as of January 30th.
But we can put that says of the second interim, Ms. Malakoff, because I wanted the numbers to match up. I wanted this here. I wanted to show you that this number here, the 6,546,000, this matches up to what we showed in our second interim report.
Okay.
That's the reason I didn't use. I could have used the number for last week, but I didn't have it to have anything to tie to, and I thought it was important to be able to tie to one of our official documents that we've released to the public.
Can I ask some questions about this?
Yes, sir.
Contracted services are tidy sum of money, $1,047,000?
Yes.
What, that includes consulting?
Yes.
Because I was looking at the other document you provided, and had like $1,900,000 in consulting services. I would sure like to see some analysis of how we spend money on consultants, and whether that might be an area where we could find some savings. And I don't know how much trouble it would be to get some breakdown on that.
All of these requests take time, as you know, and that's what I'm here for, is to provide you and the board and the public with information. It's when I'm working on a special project or assigning, getting somebody to help me with one of these things, I'm pulling them away from the budget or pulling them away from something else. But we will make this part of the budget development process. So if that's something that I think that's a large enough expense item to bring that back in greater detail so that the board can have a chance to review and just see exactly how much money we are spending in that area. I think that's a lot of money.
I think $336,000 for legal expenses is a lot of money, but I don't know what it's for. It may be for some cases that we had no choice in.
Well, you have a lot of, there's a lot of things that we use attorneys for. I've been in places where it was a lot worse, but legal expenses, our audit expenses are high.
I don't think that Mr. Diaz intended to come prepared to deal with breaking these kinds of items
No,
down.
I'm
but
not asking
I
for that.
understand.
But I
asking
wanted
for
to
that in
pique
the
your
future.
curiosity. I did this for a reason. I wanted to stimulate your interest in these line-by-line items because
You're very successful.
that's how we go about, that's how I'm going to go about reducing the budget, is going down these lines one at a time and whacking stuff off of there. So anyway, if I can move on, because we're short on time and we have another gentleman to follow right behind me. Dave, back to the PowerPoint. And in conclusion, the budget development process is ongoing daily and includes all departments. You know, there isn't much discretion money to budget after restricted money, salaries, and benefits. I would anticipate some grousing from the staff about spending controls. There's going to be people complaining about the penny pinchers. District finances are still fragile, and it's going to be at least a year until you notice any improvement, and that's only if spending is controlled and deficit spending is eliminated. And my very last food analogy for the evening. when you're a chef and you're in a big hotel and you're working your tail off, you are what is affectionately known as in the weeds. And that's a state of when you're really working hard and things are kind of stacked up against you, but you're working your way out of it. And I think that's where we're at right now, but we're coming out of it. I think if we communicate, collaborate, and cooperate, we're going to get ourselves out of this. And I thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Diaz. I have one.
Any
quick-
questions?
A question not in your report, but a question to see if we can get some information. A number of pots of money are being funneled through the County Office of Education for school safety.
Mm-hmm.
Is that anything that we would be able to tap into? I know one was it was $9 million. I don't know what that would translate, how that would translate to the Santa Barbara County Office of Education for hiring school resource officers, and money for a summer safety program. Not ringing any bells, huh? Conversation with Bill Cerrone, maybe. Okay.
Typically, President Harder, when I see these funding notices or grant opportunities, they cross my desk. Generally, they have one of the districts that's either for the elementary district or for the high school district, and I'm not passing the buck to anybody here. But generally, we forward those on, and they look at them. Our assistant superintendents look at those to see if it's appropriate for us to get into those things. Robin is very, Ms. Sawaski is, and Jan both have been very. I wouldn't call them aggressive, but I would call them progressively active in seeking out all sources of revenue for the district. They've been very good at that. So, yeah, we look at all of that. In fact, there's one coming up tomorrow that somebody just found out about. Somebody called me this afternoon about a youth partnership workforce with the county social services, and boy, Jan is on it already, and he'll be there tomorrow. So, yes, we do, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
I had
Other questions?
a question. Some time ago, you mentioned a reevaluation of whether we would be wise to continue as fiscal accountability district or to switch over to the county. And I wondered where that thinking has gone.
A great segue into this week's board brief item that will be coming your way. I have put together, I've been working with the county, and I am ready to propose, I know this is a tender subject, but yet another small consultant fee to come in and do an analysis of whether this would be a good idea. Frankly, with no disrespect to predecessors or previous staff, I thought that the report that the board received in 2005 did not include enough comparative data. It didn't include any cost information, and it certainly wouldn't be the quality of an instrument that you would need to make a decision
I
on.
thought the FCMAT report included.
Well,
No,
none of them did. I read all of them, Dr. Noel, and I'm going to, when you see your board brief item coming to you, you'll see that we've set a real specific criteria, what things will be looked at, how the costs will be associated, and it will give us, it'll answer our question once and for all. Do we want to do it or don't we? And I think we'll be able to put that to rest
great.
here very shortly.
I look forward
Once
to
and
that.
for all is a good thing. Thank you, Mr.
I
Johnson.
wanted to ask Dr. Sarvis a question. And I know it comes out in the board brief, but we submit the first interim report to the county, and they then give us a letter back. Yes. We submit the second interim report, they give us a letter back. Is it possible to get those letters back a little more public attention? Because they're very informative. And
Not in the board brief?
well, that's just so very few people read the board brief. Maybe a report to the board.
I did include the last letter from the first interim in the
I read
board. Well, we had it here in a board in the board presentation in
We did in the last.
yeah,
yes.
in March, I believe it was in March. I put it right up on the screen.
No. If I was here, I certainly don't remember it.
And we'll do
Well, we
so
can
again when
continue
we
to
get
do
the
But I was
second
thinking
interim.
that'd be
Sure.
available back there because,
Yeah, we had it. We had it out there.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We need to get to item F4. We will not get to item F5 this evening. And I need to get some indication from board members whether they even want to continue with item F4 as we are past our 10:30 time. I'll put a motion out there. All those in favor of taking item F4? I'm sorry, I make a motion that we continue with item F4. Is there a second? Second. Now, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, so we will move on.
I enjoyed that.
3-2.
Sorry, Chick.
It was Harder and
Bond Council came down from San Francisco for F4. So.
Harder and Malakoff. Okay. So item F4 is a report on the need to establish joint exercise of joint powers agreements with the Santa Barbara Elementary School District and Santa Barbara High School District, establishing the Santa Barbara Schools Financing Authority to facilitate the refunding of outstanding general obligation bonds as indicated below.
And Mr. Diaz will introduce this.
Oh, I thought you had. Oh, well, this is good news. This is good news. Thank you, Board, for at this late hour, and we promise to be brief. We've asked Mr. Charles F. Chick Adams from Jones Hall to join us this evening. He's one of our principal bond counsel with regards to our possible refunding of our general obligation bonds. And Mr. Adams will come up and give you a quick 1-2 on the JPA requirements and answer any of your questions. And we promise to be brief because we know it's late.
I've been waiting this long. I'd really like to drag this one out.
I know, really, make it worth your while. Thank you for hanging
President
in with
Harder,
us.
board members, my name is Charles Adams. I go by Chick, and I'm from Jones Hall, bond counsel firm in San Francisco. Yes, this is a report on forming a joint powers authority. I know you've been previously briefed by Dale Scott from the Financial Advisor Company, and also Joe Zeronian, an old friend of mine, who's now with an underwriting firm. And you're familiar with the fact generally that you've got two prior bond issues, one at the elementary school level, one at the high school level, and that they are prime candidates for a refunding. We're in a very low interest rate environment market. A lot of districts around the state are refunding their bonds. The choice you have, and I know this is not news to you, but just to summarize, is to take the savings in the form of cash available to be spent on projects for the districts, or alternatively to reduce the tax rate to the taxpayers. Typically, in a district of this size, especially I think, by the time you return the tax rate to the taxpayers, it's a minuscule amount and is hardly noticeable. And I understand that your inclination is to pursue the first alternative, which is to take the savings in the form of additional projects. Yes. Please interrupt me because I don't have the background that you do.
That was actually the direction we were taking, subject to the Attorney General's opinion.
Okay. Well, let me just launch into that then. The Joint Powers Authority, which is the topic of discussion tonight, is an essential ingredient of doing a financing if you want to take the savings in the form of additional projects financed from that source. There's no need to form a Joint Powers Authority if you want to do a traditional refunding and return the savings to the taxpayers. The Attorney General is reviewing a very broad request to analyze this type of refunding program generally. The background on it is, and I apologize if I'm repeating information you already have, but there are a couple different types of refunding program. One is very controversial. Our firm did not and would not engage in them. And we believe that that is what the Attorney General is focusing on. This new program that uses the Joint Powers Authority was originally developed by another law firm, the Orica firm out of San Francisco, which is the largest firm. We're the second largest firm in the state. We are actively doing them. They are actively doing them. We believe that they, unlike the alternative program, are fully compliant with the law. And we've written a brief in support of that position to the Attorney General. I've shared it with your legal counsel. And we are comfortable going ahead, notwithstanding the fact that we know this is generally under review by the Attorney General. I think it would be a sad day, quite frankly, if anytime something were under review by the Attorney General, we just had to fold up tent and go home and wait for the news to come on down from on high. So we are proceeding with this. Having said that, I do understand from the financial advisor, Dale Scott, that one of the proposals that you may wish to consider is to take the savings, put them aside in a project fund, and wait to see how the Attorney General's opinion plays out. And if it's negative, if it's bad, we believe that you can salvage the situation by, at that point, moving those savings, which are accumulated in a project fund, into the refunding and effectively lowering the tax rate to the taxpayers. It allows you to issue your bonds in an interest rate environment which is very favorable to doing a refunding, and at the same time keep your options open, should the need arise, to actually use the savings to reduce the tax bill as opposed to using them for projects. We firmly believe that you will get, or we will get, as an industry, a favorable opinion from the Attorney General on this type of refunding program. But if the worst case scenario plays out, what we're proposing is that you keep your options open to basically bail it out. The danger, of course, would be waiting for the Attorney General to rule and losing a very favorable bond market that can produce substantial savings to the district. The need for a joint powers authority arises from the fact that there's an outstanding legal provision in the government code called the Local Bond Pooling Act of 1985 that allows joint powers authorities to issue bonds to fund projects and to acquire bonds of other entities, such as refunding bonds of the school district. So it's tailor-made to what we're doing here, or proposing to do here.
Mr. Adams, the district will be able to use that JPA in the future for other fundings as well. Would they not?
Oh, yes. If you do a COP issue, you always need a counterparty to a lease. COP involves a lease. And a nonprofit corporation, which is what school districts used to do traditionally, is very time-consuming. If you don't have one already, it's very time-consuming and expensive to form, and it's an administrative burden to maintain. This would be an excellent vehicle for you to use on other financings. I might add, you're in a very enviable position because you are both a high school board and an elementary school board. I have clients that are going to neighboring districts to try to form these entities, and it's not nearly as easy as it would be for you to form a joint powers authority.
You mean just our two districts would be enough?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, you're one board, but you represent two districts, and legally you can contract with, they can contract with each other and form a third agency, which is a separate legal entity.
How does that square with, maybe you're the wrong person to ask, but we're a 35-110 we passed the single district resolution, Education Code 35-110.
All I know is you've got bonds outstanding in the name of the elementary school district, and you've got bonds outstanding in the name of the high school district, and that tells me you're two separate districts.
Okay. So it comes under the property.
And when you held your elections, you held separate elections, one for the high school district and one for the elementary school district.
I just have a quick question. If the board did move forward to refinance the bonds, and then this money would be held in a trust account, an escrow account kind of idea.
That's exactly what it is.
Would interest be accruing?
Yes.
What would we have to do with the interest should the Attorney General's position indicate that the money needed to be
You're allowed to earn
returned?
interest up to the rate on the bonds.
Okay.
It accumulates in the fund, and the expectation would be that all of that interest would have to go in the same direction as the rest of the fund.
Okay.
Back to the taxpayers
Okay.
or into projects.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Or.
Right, should it go in the direction that people are optimistic about,
Right.
yeah. Any other questions?
What's it going to cost us to form a JPA?
Nothing.
You talked about a nonprofit corporation.
Oh, a nonprofit corporation is expensive because in order to be nonprofit, you have to process state and federal tax exemptions, which is used to be a simple, routine, fairly inexpensive process. Now it is very time-consuming, and you actually the filing fees are thousands of dollars.
What?
The filing fees are thousands of dollars for a nonprofit corporation. A joint powers authority is formed simply by entering into a joint powers agreement. Once it's signed, you have created a new legal entity, and that's all you have to do.
I misunderstood you. I thought you had to do the corporation in addition to that.
No. It's an alternative, and I'm saying the joint powers authority is a much preferable
And-
alternative.
And I believe we would do this just by resolution.
Yes, you'd pass a resolution, Dr. Noel, and the costs associated with any of the work that Mr. Adams or his firm is doing in the JPA formation would be part of your closing costs, if you will, of the financing. So it's coming out of that, and it's not there's no direct cost to the district.
And if for some reason you don't actually end up issuing the bonds, that's work that we would not expect to be compensated for.
Dr. Sarvis, it would be helpful to me at any rate to understand the single district resolution implications, because this is, well, the money that goes into that trust account.
Yes.
When you finally spend it, how does it get split with the districts?
But
Is it all one?
No, the refinance
come
would be
in two different.
It would be two separate
Yes.
that's
transactions. The refinance would be based on two completely separate bonds. The money that from the refinance would be identified when it would be put into the trust account. You would know how much interest would
That was my
accrue to
question.
each piece. et
We would
cetera.
probably create two accounts, one for each of the two districts, and
It's
it would
still
be,
ultimately a matter related to bonds which were floated by individual districts, and those were not combined.
yes.
So if we
and-
brought $2 million in based on refinancing the Measure V, then we'd put those
Right.
funds
That's right.
into
Thank you very much.
secondary projects.
That's right. I should add, we have a draft of a joint exercise of powers agreement. Should it come back to you, I can just tell you some of the highlights. It will create a separate entity. We're calling it the Santa Barbara Schools Financing Authority. We create a governing board of 5 directors. We designate the board of the districts as the board of the Joint Powers Authority. The president of the district is the president of or the chairman of the authority, and the treasurer or chief financial officer is the assistant superintendent of business. So there's a mirror image, if you will, in the organization of the authority.
And we'd probably insert districts into that title, Santa Barbara School Districts.
You have to designate one member, and we have just arbitrarily chosen the high school district as the. In order to have a joint powers authority, you have to have 2 separate members, and only one of them can be the one whose representatives sit on the authority. Should the district ever split, it
Doesn't
could be
make much
material. but
difference right
it doesn't-
now.
Doesn't make, yeah.
Yes, good.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Mr.
Sure,
Adams.
sure.
It was a very clear presentation.
Glad to help, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for staying with us so late. We are not considering item F5 this evening. Item G, we need to return to consent items. So let's go, Mrs. Parker, item 1, D1.
D1. And I'm sorry, because in some of these, I wasn't able to go back and and find the original, so I haven't confirmed everything. I was concerned on the minutes from the special meeting on Tuesday, February 20th, the action agenda, C1, where it says first reading of new board policies on mission, goals, and plans. And I'm just doubting that that was our first reading of the new board policies on mission, goals, and plans. So I would have assumed that was at least our second reading. So I had concerns about that one.
I believe we kept bringing it back as a first reading, but we'll find out.
Okay. In the minutes from the March 13th meeting, my main concern there was on item F3, the superintendent's report on requested information regarding LaCoombe Junior High School and Santa Barbara Community Academy. I just wanted it was not noted in there that Board Member Parker did not agree that I-98 and Measure V bond funds could be used for this, and Dr. Noel, you might want to chime in on that. I'm not sure. You're on you're on the February 13th, and it's the March 13th. So keep going, I think. Because I believe, Dr. Noel, you agreed with me, or you also raised concerns about spending bond money and
And it was specifically that I-98 funds should not be used.
I-98 and Measure V using bond funds for
Okay,
this kind of thing,
thank
so if
you.
those could be included. And so those were my concerns on those minutes.
Do you want to make a motion on the minutes from February 13th? And the other minutes will have to come back to us.
I'll move to approve the minutes from February 13th.
Second.
I'm looking to see if there's another set. February 13th and March 20th?
Yeah, March 20th was fine.
We have to do them separate because some of us weren't there.
Okay.
So do the 13th first.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, Parker and Malakoff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, you can't vote.
And then the other two sets will have to be corrected.
Excuse me, Dr. Noel cannot vote on that one
Okay, so,
because we were absent.
okay, so the vote is 4-0 with Dr. Noel abstaining. Then we're on to March 20th.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it was Cordero and Parker? Okay.
And I'm abstaining for the 20th because I wasn't there and you weren't there.
Oh, so that was 3-0.
Okay,
It says
with two abstentions.
they were both there.
Yeah. Item D7?
On item D7, those were the elementary school site plans for the site discretionary block grants that came through. I had pulled that, obviously we just got the chance to take a quick look at it, and I noticed very quickly that the Adams plan is in there. The Adams Site Council has not approved that yet. So in checking with Mrs. Zawoski over the break, we really don't have concerns that that can come back to the board for approval at a later date. Yes?
Yes, the Adams
Yeah,
one.
just
could.
the Adams one.
The Adams one. We
So
wanna
I
pull
move
that.
to approve all the elementary site discretionary block grant school plans with the exception of Adams.
Second.
So motion by Parker, second by Cordero. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So all but the Adams site plan is approved. Item D12.
Item D12, I just had a question on because on the cover sheet on it, it refers to the fiscal impact for the elementary and the high school district. What we see behind it is a fixed fee contract and then for each district, and then an addendum to the fixed fee contract. The money that's on that cover page is only the money for the addendum to the fixed fee contract. And I was just wondering why the fixed fee contract money wasn't also included.
Staff mistake, Ms. Parker. Just left it off. My mistake.
Okay.
Shall we bring the item back?
My mistake, yeah. I
Is it
just
something
didn't
you need
catch
to
it.
look at again, or?
We could bring it back to you. It's a standard agreement, but I just left that part off. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, when you bring it back, on the cover sheet, will you include the anticipated savings? It shows us the cost, but we have
Sure.
no way to offset the cost to the potential savings.
Yeah, and those savings are kind of, out in the future, the limbo savings. and-
Projected,
But if
okay.
you don't do this stuff, then you don't get them.
Right,
Okay.
okay,
Okay,
thank
thank
you. So D12 is pulled, D19, well, actually, D19, 20, and 21.
Right,
all-
and those can all be looked at together. It just predates my coming onto the board, and so my question here was why are these, why was this contract coming out of the general fund and not either Measure V or secondary deferred maintenance,
It is for this site,
which is owned by the secondary
which is
district?
owned by the secondary district, but we don't get deferred maintenance monies from the state for this site, so we have no match, so I can't use deferred maintenance monies for the district office, nor can I use any bond funds for the office because they were not part of the bond issuance. So what we did do was we did budget money for all of the ADA improvements that are going to be taking place in this building, and I'm confident that we will be significantly under the budgeted amount.
Great, okay, thank you. Sorry, move to approve items D19, D20, and D21.
Second.
Thank you. So Parker, Cordero, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Coming events?
Abstain.
Oh, okay, so it's 4-1 with Dr. Noel abstaining on the approval of 19, 20, and 21.
4-0 with one abstention.
Mm-hmm. Coming events, I think Dr. Sarvis covered at the beginning of the meeting,
That's right, we have a special board meeting on June 5.
right? Board comments, or correspondence or comments? Future agenda items? I think we've actually added a few. Okay, meeting's adjourned, thank you.
June 5th.
Yeah, next Tuesday. I'm sorry, Tuesday.